Spoiler warning. This podcast contains many spoilers about Avengers Endgame. If you haven't seen the movie, don't listen to this podcast yet. Go see the movie. You've been warned. There are spoilers.
From the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast nobody asked for and probably nobody wants. But we're going to do it anyway because as you've probably listened over the last 120 episodes, I and my co-host Pete Sanchez are Marvel film lemmings. We are Marvel film nerds in the sense that we drop in those references constantly. So we're going to do a special one-off podcast in honor of 22 or 23 films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, Pete, not only are we not in the vault today, to make this even a little bit more homespun, we're actually sitting in my home office in Glassboro, New Jersey.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. I'm very comfy here on this couch.
Yeah, I know.
Nice.
You did get the comfiest of the positions. I'm very pleased about that. Don't fall asleep.
No, I will. I got water. I should be all right. Hopefully,
Okay.
I won't be snapped out of existence.
If you fall asleep, I will snap you out of the window that's sitting behind you. Not a problem. And we also have two special guests that we'll introduce shortly. However, we are going to do one thing related to our Catholic talk, even though we won't be getting to much Catholic talk today. We do want to bring up some of the upcoming events. So, Peter, what do we have coming up this week?
We've talked about the transitional diaconate. It's coming up this Saturday, beginning at 10:30 at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. The two seminarians, John March and Peter Gallagher, will be ordained transitional deacons, which means that for the next year they'll be working in the churches and doing kind of preaching and doing what a deacon does in preparation for, God willing, in a year from now they will be ordained to the priesthood.
Yes, and it's a wonderful ordination, and it's going to be at the cathedral this week, this Saturday. So it's going to be a beautiful, it's in our beautiful cathedral, so it's going to be a beautiful event, and it's one every Catholic should really make themselves available to, whether it's the diaconate ordination or a priest ordination. You and I, Pete, have been to a bunch of them. And I think that they're phenomenal. It's particularly in moments like the Catholic Church has faced this year in the United States, where, our priests and deacons have been struggling because of the abuse scandals that have once again hit the church. This is a great sign and a great show of Catholic faith that here are two men knowing that that's sort of hanging over them and still making that commitment to becoming priests. I think it's very heartening for Catholics to see. So personally, I'm very excited about being there, and professionally, it makes for great art. So my camera will be very happy.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure there'll be a plethora of great shots for you to get there.
They never fail.
No, that's going to be beautiful. And then coming up in 2 weeks, it will be May 17th, I believe.
May 19th, I think.
19th?
It's my birthday.
Oh, your birthday.
That's right.
Okay.
Trying to get my family to go away for my birthday.
Yes, it's Sunday, May 19th. Happy birthday, Mike, and it's also my parents' anniversary. So
happy anniversary,
but
Mr.
I don't
Mrs.
think,
Sanchez.
Thank you. I don't think they'll be going to the youth rally for the Great Adventure up to Jackson, New Jersey. This is the New Jersey Catholic Youth Rally. Every year, the youth of New Jersey converge at Jackson, New Jersey for rides, for games. I actually won. We're talking about Marvel today, but last year I won a Flash stuffed doll.
Did you?
Of the Flash. Yeah, the fastest man alive.
We're not talking about DC right now.
No?
No. Everybody knows the fastest man alive is Quicksilver anyway. He's dead in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
You knew that.
I did. Honestly,
he dies in Avengers Age of Ultron.
No, I knew he died, but I just know the Flash has always called himself, I guess, I don't know.
Well, he's a big self-promoter. You can't trust Barry. Continue.
So, but it's a fun time. Just come on out, and actually, Matt Marr will be there. You and I both see Matt Marr, a musician, very talented.
I against my will, and you willingly. That was nice.
But against your will, you would see him again.
I would if I was forced to be there. But other people really seem to like him, so I'm very excited for the people who are big fans of Matt Maher.
I have to share this story. I think it's wild. Our friend Gabby Merliano, who he had on the podcast, was in London with a friend, and they ran into Matt Maher.
On the street?
Literally, yeah.
Like,
she's
literally
a photo
wow.
on Facebook. How cool is that?
Was this the bearded Matt Maher or the unbearded Matt Maher?
It did not look like he had a beard.
Okay. So I know he's got a beard right now. It's kind of freaking
you know
me
what?
out.
I'm trying to think now. Maybe he shaved it in London. I don't know.
It's always possible.
That's a random story. So anyway, this is going to be the Catholic Youth Rally in Jackson, New Jersey, Sunday, May 19th. Contact your parish for buses. I know a lot of youth groups are going. Call Greg Coogan in the Office of Youth and Young Adult Ministry, 856-583-2908. For more information, and as well, these and all events in the diocese are on camdendiocese.org, and there's a calendar. So see all the great stuff that's going on in our diocese.
By the way, I'm really impressed that you rattled off Greg's phone number from memory. I can't remember anybody, except for my parents. I can't remember any number by memory anymore.
Well, I call him so much just for different things going on. I try to stay connected with Youth and Young Adult Ministry, with some events. So it's like second nature to me.
Oh, okay.
But I know your extension too, but I don't know if you want me to share that on air.
No, well, it's on the website, but I don't need people calling me. The email anytime you want, michael.walsh@camdendiocese.org. Yeah. Because I'm better at responding to emails than I am phone calls. All right, Pete, so we are here in my lovely office in beautiful Glassboro, New Jersey, quite literally a stone's throw from Rowan University. And we've been talking about doing a movie review podcast for a while about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're coming off the one you did just recently on, what movie was it again? That's all of a sudden popped out of my head.
Avengers?
No, the one you did with Kim.
Unplanned.
Yeah, Unplanned with Kim Bozatsky. Well, this one is going to have almost no Catholicity to it at all, other than the fact that I have two friends of mine that I played softball with on the St. Bridget's University Parish softball team 3 years ago probably, but we played on that team together for about 5 years. We were all sort of brought together because of our unofficial third co-host, Father Robert Sinatra. So I have Phil Huesser and Jay Rhinehart with us, and I'm very excited. Wait, it's not Jay Rhinehart. That's not your real last name, is it?
Rhinehart.
I know, it's Rhinehart. That's a problem with being Facebook friends with most people, is now I remember them by their dumb last name that they put up on their stuff. So I understand. You're a teacher. You want to hide. Is that still the reason why?
Yeah,
okay,
that's the reason why.
Yeah.
Probably not a bad idea.
Yeah, it probably is the best. I mean,
Because if you were my teacher, I would mess with you so bad.
He's going to have to change it now, Mike, because now people know when they listen to this, what his Facebook.
That's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind. If you're one of Mr. Rhinehart's kids, please find his Facebook page and get him into lots of trouble. There you go. I feel much better now.
I mean, don't get him into trouble.
No, don't get him into trouble.
Cause a little bit of ruckus.
Troll him. That's all we're asking.
Thanks, Mike.
No problem, Jay. So of those two voices, the more sarcastic of the two you're going to hear is Phil, and the more straight-laced one you're going to hear is Jay. And hopefully we're going to have a very good conversation about the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Can I ask a quick question, though?
Well, I was going to ask a question first, but okay,
No,
go
hold
ahead.
on. No. Well, this is a little off topic. So you remember that phone number off the top of your head, correct?
Yeah.
Is that one you type in to like a office phone, or are you doing this in your? Do you remember that from your cell phone?
No, I do it on my office phone.
Okay, I was about to say, because if you did that, the only time you've ever done it is when you put it into your cell phone and you still remembered it. I would be highly impressed.
No, but
don't be. I mean, I put it in my cell phone because I know all the numbers have 583.
Gotcha.
But internally, it's the last four digits, so I can remember.
All right. Well, that's the last time I'll try to get off topic, but I can't get into it.
This podcast, all it does is digressions. So you're.
I
safe.
digress.
There you go. So, which reminds me, we got to do one other thing. But so the question I had is, before we get started on Endgame itself, what was your first Marvel movie that brought you into becoming a Marvel fan? Was it Iron Man? Was it later than
like
that?
in the MCU, or
Yeah,
you talking about like just as kids, or?
No, I think I'm talking about the MCU. But
definitely Iron Man. I saw Iron Man and I was
Iron Man 1?
Yeah.
In the like 2008, the first, like when
yeah,
it first came out?
Iron Man, I went my senior year of high school. I went to go see that Abomination Hawk with Eric Bana.
Yeah,
that was terrible. That's the only time I ever walked out of a movie theater. I think it was atrocious. But that it started with Iron Man, and as it all went, it just picked up more steam. But I've been into this stuff since I was a kid.
Oh yeah, the Marvel comics were always big for me. I was a Spider-Man fan. I wasn't really into the Avengers at all. Like I have to admit that when the MCU was released, I was a big X-Men fan, right? So so that was really what and I love the X-Men TV show, cartoon TV show.
Oh yeah, the X-Men. Then was it the Amazing Spider-Man too?
Yeah, and the Amazing Spider-Man. So like the cartoon area was really where I loved it. I wasn't huge into the comic books. So prior to the MCU starting as it is now, I was a big X-Men fan. From the Patrick Stewart X-Men group. Yeah. But then when the MCU came out, I have to say that ever since that's happened, I'm definitely a Marvel lemming, and I can only truly enjoy the MCU movies. Like I enjoyed the first of the Fantastic Four when that came out with Ian. Oh shoot! What was his
Jessica
name?
Alba.
Well, let's call it the Jessica Alba.
Jessica Alba.
Yeah.
The guy who was Yon, right?
Yeah.
Yon Griff.
And Chris Evans was.
And Chris Evans was the Human Torch, right?
Yeah.
And I actually didn't have a problem with him as I know some people weren't a big fan of his, but I thought he was fine as the Human Torch. And I thought
I think he played it perfectly. Honestly.
Yeah, I thought that he's supposed to be an annoyance in that. And I thought
I never got into. I was a big Batman fan. I was Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson. Grew up on the Batman cartoon, go to the library every weekend, pick up the Batman comic. For me, it was Captain America, First Avenger, that got me hooked. I kind of bypassed the first Iron Man movie. Obviously, I had to go back and watch it.
Yeah.
But then once Captain America came out, I was like, what was I doing all my life? I watched X-Men. I watched Spider-Man. I was into that. I followed the Spider-Man storyline, the cartoon, like you said, in the 90s there, Mike. But... after that, I'm like, I'm missing out. And then I saw Thor. And then I saw, Iron Man 2. And as they all started coming out, I'm like, what am I missing? And now I'm like, I got to go back and I got to read the comics now. Like, I really got to.
You don't have to read all of them. Like, you kind of just got, my personal opinion, you cherry pick at this point because it's kind of hard to go through every single thing and then.
That's exactly what I do is when there are a couple of websites I go to like Nerdist, and they'll make references to what movies drew from what comics. So I'll go back and read those comics.
That's kind of like what I would like to do.
Yeah.
But I've been like reading up. I've been doing like just research on the internet. Like, hey, like what's the backstory here? Like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
So like going into the movie, like if they're mentioning this, like I have an idea.
And that's the thing from not necessarily everybody in the MCU, except maybe Captain America. There's 70 years of rich comic book story there to sort of pull from. So there is a lot of great elements that you just can't do in movies. Like anything we've ever seen that was adapted from a book, everyone will always say, the book is better. The nice thing with popcorn, these kind of popcorn MCU movies is, we know the comics are better, but this stuff talks to us.
Well, that's the thing is like, they're cherry picking their stories too, but they're also making it their own.
Yeah.
They're like taking some of the main concepts of the comic books that they're doing it off of, but they're making it their own story.
Yeah.
And then it all comes together as like every movie is in one universe and they're all the same.
Or
the same,
are they anymore? Now that the Spider-Man trailer was released today, and once again we got a reference to the multiverse. First brought up in Doctor Strange when he referred to the multiverse. Actually, I think the Ancient One referred to the multiverse. But in our discussion for Endgame, let's go back to the very beginning. We're going to skip. We're going to go past Infinity War. Instead, we're going to go directly to the first trailers we saw for Endgame. Now, for me, the Endgame, back in the day, the Marvel trailers used to always get me because when I was a young neophyte Marvel lemming, I thought they were truth tellers. I thought they were telling me about the movie. And now I've realized Marvel trailers are all curveballs. They're all to send you in a different direction.
Exactly.
So you don't realize what you're really going up against. And I love that, by the way. I love the fact that they do that.
I think the first time I saw that was Iron Man 3. When they built up Iron Man 1 talked about the Mandarin. It mentioned the rings with the literal ring that the guy had on, one of the villains. and then they had the Mandarin turned out not to be what everybody thought it was going to be, and it was hysterical. I, for one, actually, I don't know about this group. I actually liked that twist with he was an actor and Guy Pearce's character Killian was pulling the strings. So, but then too,
I wasn't a big fan of the twist, but I'll tell you right now, Ben Kingsley
Yeah.
was hysterical.
He played it perfectly.
oh yeah,
Hello, I'm Trevor.
yeah, you just did not see that coming.
But I think, going back to your point, I think that's what makes your point, Phil. I think that's what makes the MCU work so well is because they know that they're 70 years behind them, and people can just go to the books and realize what's happening. So instead, they change direction on you. So a lot of people, you're right, Pete, were upset that the Mandarin ended up not being the Mandarin. I thought it was perfect.
I heard from a director one time, I forget who it was, giving an interview, and they were talking, it was some big summer blockbuster, and they said, if you want to know if a good movie's coming out, you reveal nothing in the trailer.
Yep.
And Marvel has done that with every movie.
Yeah.
Like, you watch all the trailers, and it's like, okay, what part of the movie am I watching? Like, is that in the middle? Or, like, you're looking for like the scenes, you're like looking for like little Easter eggs, and obviously a bad movie, you basically get the entire movie in the trailer.
Yep.
And people are like, oh, that looks really cool, and then you go see and you're like, what was I just watching? Like,
Marvel trailers are the reason I have trust issues anymore.
I agree with
you. Because like when Endgame came out, well, not when Endgame, the Infinity Wars, like you saw like all the stuff that was in it. I mean, the last shot of the first trailer when they're all charging in Wakanda, and you see nothing like that.
Yep.
That scene's nowhere to be found.
Oh, the first Thor Ragnarok trailer had Hela destroying Thor's hammer, Mjolnir
in
a cityscape.
Yeah.
And then when it actually happens, it's actually in a grassy field in Norway. And I remember watching the movie and going, that is not what I saw the first time. And thinking that's what they do now. And then
but it's good though.
It's great.
I like that because you're going in and you don't know. Because I was talking to Jay about it before. The way I feel about it is like I don't mind it, but the thing about it that really just like I thought so many things in the last Endgame trailer came out that were all red herrings. Like I didn't think Tony was in like when they're getting ready to go time travel, and they're all walking. They had that shot where they're all walking. I honestly thought Tony was. I thought he was CGI'd in.
Oh,
and I'm like, I was like, he's not there.
It was the week before they threw that one trailer. I was watching. It was a Phillies game.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they like snuck this in, and I like geeked out. I was like, wait a second. They're like talking about time travel, and they're like in the time or the quantum realm suits.
Yep.
And I was like, you haven't really seen any of that.
Yeah.
And it was like great because they did that the last week. Because all before that, you didn't know who's left, who's where, who's being saved, and then seeing Captain Marvel, I'm like, all right, how does she play into all of this? And like, how are they going to? And she's not even in any of the trailers.
Yep.
So it's like, is she at the end? And as we get into talking about the movie, like that threw me for a loop, like her right in the beginning there.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. I mean, Captain Marvel ends with a stinger. The Captain Marvel movie ends with a stinger of her coming into Avengers headquarters when the Avengers, right after the snapping occurred, the decimation, as it's called apparently officially. The original one. And they're using the pager, the Nick Fury pager.
Right.
And then Black Widow says, well, let me know when you hear something. She turns around and there's Captain Marvel there. And that scene doesn't exist at all in Endgame.
I think that's one of those one. Well, no, because then in the movie she brings Tony. We'll get into that.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Because you actually have to end up piecing some things together. But going back to what you were saying, Phil, about not trusting the trailers, Marvel also became when the last Endgame movie came out, you started having online reviewers trying to figure out where are the holes in the scenes where somebody should be standing.
I saw that.
Yeah, because Captain America Civil War is where they had X'd out Spider-Man from one of the big battle scenes.
I think that's when everyone started to notice it too.
Yeah. But I think that's good though. I mean, and I like that I don't trust Marvel trailers anymore because
I was nervous for this one.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, because the hype, they hyped it all up, and I'm like, is it going to be a big letdown? Like they've built everything up. It's 22 years, and then like, is it gonna? I don't know. I was very hesitant. I was very pleased with it, but I was just nervous just because the trailers and like okay, what are they trying to tell? Like, what? Like, they're not telling us anything. But then again, like, when you got a trailer, it was like, oh my gosh, like, this is
I
gonna
have
be
to
the
see it.
greatest
Yeah.
thing. Like, I got to go see it.
Yeah. I feel now for Marvel Cinematic Universe trailers like I did when Star Wars was rebooted. Well, the prequels came out in the late 90s. And now it's funny that now the latest, Star Wars trailer came out the week before Endgame, and I was like, "Oh, that's nice." I wasn't like super jazzed up.
That's
for
a whole nother story
Yeah.
for another time because I Star Wars has let me down. I'll just leave it at that.
Star Wars is letting you down, and Game of Thrones is letting me down horrendously right now.
I feel like it was Star Wars. That's
Now that
all.
doesn't mean I'm not going to throw all my money at Star Wars, but
I'll definitely
now
go see it.
I'll go
but-
see it,
Yeah.
but it's not what it once was.
It isn't.
No.
I agree, and I think it's good that they're taking a break after Rise of Skywalker, which, by the way, is a title I'm not sure that I approve of either.
Yeah, I'm not a fan
But-
because that feels like a couple years of letdown.
Yeah, right. So I'm like, all right, well, blue graphics, all right, Rise of Skywalker. I'll see you in December, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to get excited about it. So, all right, we talked about the trailer, so let's talk about the movie itself. So we sit in our nice reclining chairs in the movie theater, and for me, it was midnight of Thursday evening when it was released, and only because it was midnight because I couldn't get tickets sold out so quickly that I couldn't get to any of the earlier ones, so I went to the midnight showing. I sit down, I watch 30 minutes of previews of or trailers of other movies coming up, about maybe 2 I would actually be interested in watching,
Star Wars being one of them.
of course. And then the movie actually kicks off, and it kicks off with the classic Tony monologuing, and monologuing from space as he and Nebula are, not moving.
Wait, are we remembering this differently? That's
Wait, how
how
did
it
it-
started off. No,
how did it start off?
Hawkeye with his family is how it starts off.
Darn it, that's right.
They tug,
I was
they
thinking
tug right at your,
post-credits.
they tug right at your heartstrings
That's right.
from
You're
the very
absolutely
beginning.
right. How did I forget that? You're absolutely. Oh my god, I feel bad. No, you're right.
I haven't even seen the movie. This is all. I'm going off like spoilers.
Well, we do know it's not Kate Bishop that was
Yeah.
the archer. At least we don't think it was Kate Bishop. But you're right. I forgot. They started by at the very first opportunity punching us in the heart. So they start with Hawkeye.
I figured that was going to happen because I read about he's going to go Ronin in this, and I read some things about in the comics like where he went with that, and I was like, you know what, they're going to backtrack, like something's got to happen to him to become just that pure assassin that he becomes.
Yeah.
So I was like, is it going to be his wife? Is it going to be the daughter? And then when they started the scene with them shooting, I was like, it's definitely the daughter.
And if you remember back to Avengers: Age of Ultron, it was Clint Hawkeye who was used as a red herring in the movie. We throughout the movie you find out that he's got this wife and children that you never knew existed, and Marvel's kind of leading you down this path of this is the guy who's going to die in the Avengers.
These are agents.
Yeah, and that when you find
Smaller agents.
when you get to the very end of the movie, it's actually Quicksilver who sacrifices himself so that Clint can live and make it back to his family. So as Marvel people, I remember watching Avengers and being so scared that they were going to kill Hawkeye because every trope from other movies led me to believe that Hawkeye had to die at the end of the movie to make all those emotional things pay off.
See, to me, I thought it was going to be Captain America. I thought
You talking about in Ultron, or are you talking about
Ultron?
in this one?
or
We're
no,
talking
Cole,
about Ultron.
or Civil War. I thought they were because he dies in the
it's Civil
comics.
War, yeah, right.
And I was like, you know what? They're going to need something there. Mm-hmm. There's been rumors about Bucky taking over. There's been rumors about Sam taking over. Mm-hmm. And I was like, they're going to need something. And then in Infinity War, I thought that's where it was going to happen. I thought it was going to be the end. The snap threw me off, and then everybody's disappearing.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, this, because I kept thinking about Ultron when Tony has when Scarlet Witch does the spell to him.
Yeah.
And you see them all laid out. And I was like, where is that scene going to come back? Like, they're foreshadowing everything. Mm-hmm. They foreshadowed the whole dance scene and everything. I'm like, all right, so how is this all going to play into effect there? And I thought killing Steve Rogers would be the calling card to get them back together.
And you're saying Civil War?
In Civil War or Infinity War?
to get to
Both of them?
Endgame,
To get to Endgame.
going
So
into
Infinity
Endgame.
War.
Yeah, I thought it was going to happen in Civil War. It didn't happen there, and then I was like, all right, it's going to happen in Infinity War.
Well, yeah, and that's another example of what you were saying, Phil, about how we know Captain America dies because he dies in the books, and yet after Endgame he didn't die.
But it's slightly different though. Like
Yeah.
the Civil War in the comics is slightly different. Mm-hmm. I mean, Tony and Captain America both have their teams that they fight against each other, because of the Sokovia Accords. But I lost my train of thought there for a second. There's so much more that goes into it, like all the people changing sides and stuff like that. Whereas in this one, it's just because we don't have that many.
In Civil War, the only one that changed sides was Agent 13. She was she basically helped.
She gets them their
she gets them their gear back.
Yeah,
Right. She's the one feeding them information and stuff like that.
Technically, can't you say that Black Widow?
Yeah,
I was just going to say Black Widow because she lets them get on
That's
the
right.
Hellcat or whatever that was. Right?
The Quinjet.
Quinjet?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna need you to step your game up, dude. You're killing me already.
Sorry.
Hey man, I forgot the opening scene of Endgame. He's fine. It's a
good thing I'm here to keep this circus together.
So Endgame starts, and we see the snapping happen to the Hawkeye family, to the Barton family, and they go and they dust out. And I thought that was a great scene. I do think it was emotionally poignant. It was really the first time we saw, other than our favorite Avengers dust at the end of Infinity War, this is the first time we actually saw people that we knew gets. Oh no, it's not true. We saw at the end at the Ant-Man and the Wasp too. We saw all of the
Van Dynes,
and
Hank Pym.
Yeah, and the Pyms. They dusted away.
So my question is, did the rest of his friends dust away too? Was it Luis?
Yeah, I know. I was wondering about that too. They didn't show up at all.
Well, that's the big thing about Spider-Man is that because they've been gone for 5 years, and if he's going back to high school now, did the whole high school get wiped out? Like, there's.
I mean, not the whole. I mean,
I bet you there was part of it. I think I
Well,
was
his
surprised
buddy,
if his
but-
entire crew
Ned.
got dusted. Yeah.
I think they confirmed that Ned got snapped. So in the trailer, in the movie, at the end of the movie, when they see each other, they're both after coming back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense. What about MJ or?
Well, no, they could all be snapped. I mean, you
don't
lost
know.
entire families. So.
I'm sure they'll explain it.
Yeah.
They're not like that's a big plot hole.
Yeah. Except remember, that's not a Marvel movie. That's a Sony movie. So
Technically, it's technically still Marvel.
It's
though,
licensed to
because
Sony,
it's still under the Marvel name. Like I'm pretty sure Marvel writes it all, everything for it.
I think they do.
But then Sony gets like the credits for releasing it and stuff like that.
Right.
Because he's basically he's on loan right now.
But I always
which
get
scares
nervous.
me.
I always get nervous with those copyright ones where it's not Marvel Studios specific.
But with Disney Plus coming out, they're supposed to merge all this because eventually some rumors are that they're going to bring the X-Men in.
Well, that's
Fox.
different.
That's Fox.
Yeah.
Oh, Fox.
That's Fox. Whereas Sony is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And basically he's on loan. I think they let him for like 3 solo films, I think it was, and then after that, now they want to do him with Venom, and that movie was a train wreck. So.
Yeah, I had no hope for that movie. That's one of the few.
Neither did I. I went in there. It's one of those movies that I thought I was going to go in there. I didn't watch it in theaters. I watched it when it came out on video. But it was one of those movies where I thought I was just like, all right, turn your mind off because this is going to make no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. All right, so we see the Barton family vanish, and we all get punched in the heart. First credit rolls, and now we get the Tony monologuing in space adrift with Nebula, who I love. And I like that he referred to her as, what do you refer to, the mean blue girl? He said something to that effect.
Blue Meanie.
The Blue Meanie. That's right, the Blue
good
Meanie.
ECW reference.
Yeah. I do like. It was only all right.
Say hello to the blue guy.
So we see him sort of talking to himself, and Nebula, who seemed to... Now, this is a question I have. Nebula, we know, is at least part machine. But at one point, like, she looks fairly healthy going, like, in the flashbacks that we see. Like, and all the way to the end when he appears to be dying on the floor of the Benatar, which is, anybody remembers, is the name of that ship. It's the Benatar, as opposed to the Milano from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. She puts him in the seat, and I got the impression for him to die while looking out into space.
I thought that too. I thought, man, they're going to start this movie by killing off Tony.
Yeah, but so that was another possibility. I was like, really, we're going to lose Tony that quick as well? And we see Nebula being very kind. She refuses the food at one point and letting him eat it instead. And he does. I didn't actually find out if they CGI'd him, but that first.
When he's really
gaunt,
thin.
really gaunt and gray. I think he must have been CGI'd because he looked.
I mean, they've done it before with Steve, so I mean,
that's true. They know what they're doing.
They did,
they did it with Tony in Civil War because he's with the family. He's reflecting.
Their de-aging CGI is amazing.
Oh yeah. And actually, that one was probably the least. Well, that and the Coulson ones were probably the least good versions of the anti-aging that I've seen so far. The Coulson one from Captain Marvel. I thought they made him too. Although I think they kind of retconned it later in the movie because when they were talking to one of the Skrulls, he said, being able to shapeshift is actually, you have to be good at it. So I wonder if the Skrull that shapeshifted into Coulson wasn't that good at it. That was my
possibility.
Which is the reason why his anti-aging didn't look as good. But that's another discussion. So we see him about to die. Now, this was the only time when I was worried that it was a cop-out. Because about to see him die in the front seat of the Benatar, and then there's the big glowing orb of light that just lights up the cockpit, and then I think that's the first time we see the glowing Captain Marvel sort of saying, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah. Which is what I was going to say is like you were talking about at the end of Captain Marvel, how they had that stinger where she just randomly shows up. So my question is, was she already on Earth? And then they found a way to track the Benatar to find him, maybe? But then again, how did they know he was on the Benatar? That's I don't know. So my only thing is because usually the stingers they do usually tie in really well.
No, but Rocket was back on Earth, so Rocket would have been able to figure out.
Yeah, but how did they know that Tony was on the? Unless they were just looking for the Benatar in general.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's possible.
Which I didn't even think about that until right now.
Or it is Captain Marvel, so she also would have known where Titan is, and might have gone to Titan to see. Because nobody on Earth would have known where those guys ended up, but I'm sure Titan would have been one of those places that would have been considered as some place where they could have gone to know whether or not they were still alive.
Or Nebula would have. Well, no, they didn't even have Nebula.
Yeah, so that's how she got to that particular location is a bit murky. But
and is that before or after the end scene in Captain Marvel?
See, I think it happens after. I think she shows up on Earth, it's talking to everybody, talking to Rocket, and I suspect that amongst them they figure out because Rocket is the one. Rocket probably fine-tuned all of their electronics to search space and things like that, and then they're able to tell her where to go.
Because I get confused with her with the fact that she just appears. She shows up and then she leaves. She shows up and she leaves.
Well, apparently that's
so.
Part
like,
of her...
what's going on in the universe is my question.
I believe you're the question will be answered in Captain Marvel 2 or Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because that's her thing. Even from the comics, I've read that a couple of times where she actually goes off a lot into space. Like particularly when she has bad times on Earth, apparently she retreats into space to, I don't know, be tough.
Like a fortress of solitude.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish I could do that sometimes.
Us too, Phil. Us too. And then there's that beautiful scene where she brings the Benatar back to Earth, carrying it like Captain Marvel would. Although, considering how
like
close
a waiter,
exactly. Considering how close to death Tony was, I kind of wonder what her top speed is that she was able to get him back so quickly. But assuming before he died.
Pretty high, I would assume.
Yeah, okay, right. pretty fast. Okay, so then she comes back and. The ship lands, Tony comes off, big hug for Captain America, which you weren't sure what that response was going to be like, considering the last time they saw each other, they tried to kill each other. Then that's also the first time we see Pepper and the return of the pepperoni together.
Since Homecoming?
Yeah, it would have been the first time we saw.
She was at the end.
Yeah, because she was. Well,
she was only
she was
like 30 seconds.
She was in Infinity War.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
at the very beginning, and we hear her voice where everyone thought she was pregnant.
And it answers the question: did she get snapped or not?
She was unsnapped, unscathed for at least 28 days, 21 days, something like that. So they hug it out. 22 maybe. And
22 days for 22 years. Or films? I don't know. Whatever.
Okay, we're getting very confused with our numbers now. So then the next day shows up, and the next thing we see is all the Avengers together in a room. And this is where this is what I'm trying to remember in the storyline. This is why I kind of wish I'd seen it a third time. When do they end up having the fight? They end up
with Thanos?
No. With Rock, where they start having the fight about whether or not to go to the garden planet.
It's basically right after that.
Yeah, it's right after. Yeah, because they start talking about it, and Tony's like, no, and he's got
Tony
the
starts
IVs.
freaking out. He's having like PTSD. Like he's like going nuts. He's
he
losing
looks
his
terrible.
mind.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he was there.
Mm-hmm.
He did all that to him, and like you said, he's like all that for a drop of blood.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, he can't do anything to him. So he's out. That's right, and he ends up having to be sedated because he's flipping out.
right.
He's kind of got the Hulk thing going, like at the beginning of Infinity War when the Hulk's like done, changing, like whatever Thanos did, like it messed up your head. Like, yeah, we're done. And they're what, you got Cap, you got Black Widow, you got Thor. They're like, all right, let's do this. Like, you know, we've got Captain Marvel now. We can fix this kind of thing. And he's just like, yeah, it still doesn't matter.
I mean, because you got to figure he literally threw everything he had at him, but the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
And he's still just that one little cut.
Yeah. So he goes to sleep, and the rest of the Avengers make the determination to get back into the Benatar and fly out to the Garden Planet, which is also one of the first times we see. I did love the scene. Rocket really provided mostly comic relief, I think, in this movie. Not was a lot hinging on Rocket and anything, but that's also the first time, because my wife actually asked me last night. She's like, why did they get into this plane that was going to fly into space? Why did all those people get in there so like nonchalantly? Don't you have to have like space training for months on end? And I was like, well, yeah, but this is the Benatar, and you know, it's the three of the people in that spaceship have been to space before, so it's not going to be frightening to them. But Rocket does say the line, okay, which of you newbies haven't been to, or not newbies, Humies, which of you Humies haven't been to space before? And they raise their hand. He's like, okay, the first one that what did he say? The first one that throws up, I'm going to shoot, or something like that.
Also, I think to answer your wife's question as well is these are, I mean, like Rocket, they've pretty much mastered like space travel, whereas we're still trying to figure it out basically down here.
Yeah, which is what I was my response to her. I was like, they probably felt comfortable. They're all superheroes. They're living the superhero life. They're just going to get onto the ship and be fine. But so they end up flying to the garden, and this is really the next red herring that we see, which is, you know, we see shuffling along the garden in his farm area. We see Thanos and his wife beater and dirty boots picking some sort of plant life to eat, and he's making soup.
He like retired the uniform too. That's like as the a scarecrow kind of thing.
Which is right out of the comic books, using his armor as a scarecrow.
Now, see, I thought at that moment he was using the stones because there's an Avengers cartoon on Disney Channel, and I watched that, and it was like a 5-part series of the Infinity Gauntlet, and each episode was using the stone. So I was like, oh, he's like got the Mind Stone, like they're trapped in like a Mind Stone, or they're trapped in like the Soul Stone or something. I thought that's how they were going to play this movie out. Yeah, but they really kept it to just the glove and the snapping.
I thought when they showed up on Titan 2 in the garden, I thought that it was like in Infinity War where he's at nowhere using the Reality Stone.
Yes,
and just making it seem like a completely different thing.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for like after they cut his head off, and I'm just like, all right, so where's he at? Because he was so weak at that point too.
Yeah. Well, that was what I thought was great about it was first of all, so that happened. This is all within like the first, we've made it maybe 15 minutes into the movie at this point, and it's at this time we saw all the Avengers. They grab Thanos, they hold him down. Thor cuts off the arm with the gauntlet on it. They turn over the gauntlet and they see that all the stones are gone, and that's when he says that he used them, and nobody believes him, because just like us, nobody would have believed him. But that's when Nebula pipes up and says, "If my father is many things, but a liar is not one of them." Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, now we know he's not using the Reality Stone." Although, proving once again your point, he is a liar because he did use the Reality Stone in Nowhere to trick Gamora.
Yeah, but it doesn't really make him a liar.
True,
in my opinion. That's more along the lines of him showing his power.
Yeah. So then the scene ends with Thor cutting off his head and the other Avengers going, "Why?" And he goes, "I went for the head." Finally. So
you can see at that point how messed up he really is.
Yeah.
Like Thor's been through so much in these past, like since Ragnarok, really.
Yeah.
If you think about it, he's lost everything pretty much in his life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, like he lost Mjolnir, which just that at that point, just you could tell how upset he was about that because it gave him so much purpose in life, for one, and then two, he loses his best friend and his brother at the very beginning of Infinity War. And then this is a guy that's probably not used to losing either. He's over 1,000 years old, and he probably hasn't lost many battles, if any, in his life.
Yeah.
So then you jump to Thanos at the very end, and he had the opportunity to kill him, but he got cocky because he wanted to prove to him, he wanted to show him, like, look, see, I told you I was going to make you pay for all this. And he was like, well, sorry, snaps, and then...
Yeah.
No, it's true. That I have it up on my board at work. Pride goeth before the fall all the time because that's what... Man, every time you let your pride get ahead of you, that's when bad things happen. Actually, one thing we talked about, was anybody thrown off by the first fight between Cap and Tony when they were still in Avengers headquarters?
When he gives him the nanotech thing, and he's like, "Here, you want to do it? Go ahead. I'm not going."
I loved it. I thought he made a lot of strong points. Like, yeah, this is the reason why I didn't want to do what you did, Cap. This is the reason I wanted going back to Ultron, the shield around the Earth. This is why we were doing what we could do because we knew we were going to lose. And what I liked was Captain didn't really fight him on it. He was like, "Yep."
That line where it called back to, I think, Ultron, where Tony tells Cap, you said we'd lose, we'd do that together too. And look what happened.
Yeah,
they weren't together. But they weren't together. They lost separately.
No, but I think then it was referring to maybe the upcoming fight. I
don't know. The so his head goes off.
Well, back to that point real quick, is what you're saying. So, if we lose, we'll lose. We'll do that together too. I think it's a matter of, because Ultron happens before Civil War, and in Civil War everything falls apart. He's about to call Steve. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it calls back to that. It's just yeah, we're gonna do this together. But then we get into this huge fight, and you pretty much tell me like, yo, like, I'm not your friend. Mm-hmm. When he's fighting with him and Bucky, you're fighting Tony.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I think that, yeah.
That's been a hallmark of the Marvel movies too, is the emotional stuff, particularly between the characters. Like, the reason all the great Marvel movies, I think we can say that there have been great Marvel movies and not so great Marvel movies. And I've said you can really gauge. What was that?
Dark World.
Yeah, well, I was exactly making the same point. You can tell how great a movie was by how great its villain is. So, Thor: The Dark World was one of the ones where I thought it was the worst because the villain was so one note. There was really nothing to him. There was really no,
I think it was just poor storytelling as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it was not a great movie.
The Thor movies never caught my attention
until Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Ragnarok was
Ragnarok. Yes.
It seemed like they didn't know how to write them. Like they didn't know what to do with them, and then Taika Waititi came in and just nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Taika's version, Thor Ragnarok, is not faithful to any comic book. Thor is an Asgardian character in every comic book. The problem is, I don't think the character plays well in a movie because he's stoic and he's not particularly interesting.
Do you think that's why they're going to these TV shows now? Because they're going to do the
Loki.
Loki,
and
then
Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then WandaVision.
Yeah. So are they realizing with some of these characters, we really can't get a 2-hour movie with a decent villain, so we'll go shorter. We'll do like a mini series. But then it forces you to buy Disney Plus because then you got to watch it.
I got news for you. I'm buying Disney
Plus.
I
am too. Because
at this point, they're making it really hard for me not to.
Oh, yeah.
Netflix might be out the window, especially if they just raise my prices again.
Well, that's just
it. They're getting rid of all the stuff that I watch.
Yeah, once I lost the Netflix shows or the Marvel shows on Netflix, we got Jessica Jones coming out eventually, sometime this year. Well, once that's gone, that pretty much was all my reason to have Netflix at the moment.
At this point, yeah. And then
once
they have the Marvel movies on there now too.
Yeah, some of them.
Not all.
Doctor Strange just left.
Captain Marvel's the last one to air on Netflix.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then Disney Plus starts in November.
Yep.
But I feel like the shows are going to come out, and then all of a sudden there's going to be another Marvel movie, or if they do a new Avengers, and if these characters are fitting in as like an Ant-Man kind of thing and not necessarily do a movie, then they're telling parts of the story and you're like, oh, I don't watch the show, so I'm not picking up on that joke.
I wonder if they're going to do it the way they did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., though, where the effects that happen in the movies take effect in that they're all in the same universe, but they still kind of keep them separately.
Yeah.
The only one that overlaps is Coulson.
Yeah.
But like in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like when the whole thing was happening in Winter Soldier with Hydra taking over, like that was taking place also in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I'm wondering with certain ones that's going to be on Disney Plus if that's going to be. Whereas like the ones on Netflix where they wouldn't really. They would talk about them, but not like directly.
Mm-hmm.
So like, the invasion or the event. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't call him the Hulk. They call him the big green guy. Mm-hmm. Like they wouldn't. It was weird.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious to see what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comes out on Friday. So I am curious to see how that ties into the first snapping, the second snapping, where it's going to fall in that timeline.
Where it fits in there.
Or multiverse and dimensions.
The Jessica Jones.
Because I think they actually have used that to not introduce, but to explore more.
Well, yeah, the character of the Rider, Ghost Rider. That second generation Ghost Rider, the Robbie character, who showed up in S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's where they started getting into dimensions. Like he's the one. At the very end, you realize that he was able to move through dimensions the same way Strange does. That same sort of portal system.
Like another thing, I think it's a lot easier to do because it's like they have more time to explain it. But they went deeper into the Hydra, the Hydra being S.H.I.E.L.D. the whole time. Like they went way deeper into it than Winter Soldier did. If I remember correctly, it's been a really long time since I watched it, but
no, they did.
Jessica Jones, Daredevil. Where do they fit in the? Are they with this universe? Or are they in a different universe?
They're
or
in
are
the
they
same
universe, but it's still. I don't know. It's weird how
they're considered the same universe, but they're considered street level superheroes, which is why they don't tie into the cosmic.
Yeah,
I haven't been able to get into those shows really. I've watched bits and pieces, and
I find Daredevil, Punisher, and Jessica Jones, I think, is still my favorite. Jessica Jones season 1 is still my favorite. Punisher's 2 seasons have been outstanding. I did like the Defenders miniseries that they did.
I wasn't a big fan of Iron Fist the first season. Second season was okay.
Second season was better.
It was okay.
Yeah, but you do need to see it to understand what's going on with the Defenders, so you were forced to watch it.
Okay.
And then Luke Cage, I really liked. But particularly season 1,
in my personal, that falls flat at certain times.
It's because they got rid of the best villain was Cottonmouth.
Oh, Cottonmouth,
and they got rid of him halfway through. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It's what? So anyway,
blowing my mind.
So now we're 20 minutes into Endgame. And now the 5-year advance starts, and we slowly see it. It says, 5 years later, goes across the screen to the gasps. At least in my first showing, the gasps of everyone there. And I think the next scene we see is once that
starts
scene
off with the
Captain
the
America,
group.
right?
Yeah, Captain America
with the group,
which I didn't understand a whole lot. Like, was that just like a depression group? Because
I think it was a survivors group, but I think it actually harkens back to the PTSD group that Falcon
I
from.
was actually just thinking the same
from
thing.
Captain America.
I figured that's where I made that connection, but then I'm like, okay, why is Cap here? Because he's not really
leading it.
He's the leader, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you're hearing all these other people talk, and that kind of threw me for a loop. Like sitting there watching, but now talking with you guys, like it's making more sense to me now.
Well, here's the thing: is you also got to realize at this point in time, there's no fighting to do. So he has a different purpose.
So he needs something.
He has to he's still helping people, just in a different way because there's nothing really to do at that point.
Yeah, for him
anyway.
Thanos
is gone.
Ronan is doing his thing. Ronan / Hawkeye is doing his thing in Japan,
and Black Widow's in the headquarters.
Yeah, Captain Marvel's back up in back up in space.
Yeah, along with Nebula and Rocket and
Rhodey.
War Machine somewhere, in Mexico and General Okoye.
Yeah,
she's in Wakanda.
Which I read something earlier that apparently that might be a way to introduce Namor, which they're trying to do.
I heard the same thing.
Yeah,
I've never been a big. Much like Aquaman, I was never. The water-based characters have never been big for me because I always feel that they're kind of naturally self-contained because you can only be in the sea. So I'm curious if they actually do Namor, or if that was just another red herring. What's that?
But whales, there's whales.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't really know too much about him. I started reading a little bit about him a few months ago. I didn't really get too deep into it.
Yeah,
but It's like you said, it's
we'll see.
Aquaman.
But then again, these are the same people who were able to turn a whole bunch of minor characters into box office.
Oh no, that's
gold.
not. I was literally just thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, if there is a will, there's a way, and they'll find it. And I have in Feige, I trust because he hasn't let me down so far. Really,
10 years.
I mean,
on?
I really didn't care about Ant-Man before the movie came out. I was like, Ant-Man. And I watched the movie. I'm like, okay, he got me.
Yeah,
well
that's,
played.
Yeah.
That's because they did it the right way. They didn't make it a big movie. It was a palate cleanser. Really, it was. Here's this tiny small movie, a heist movie, which we'll get into that a little bit later too. A heist movie, and then even the follow up one wasn't a huge thing. I mean, even though he became Giant Man at one point in it, it was a small storyline, which is where I think Marvel is sensible, and that they have these epics, but a lot of the movies are actually fairly small in scope.
Well, and to fill, because it covers a lot of the stories too. I mean, if you didn't have Ant-Man and Wasp, how do we know about the quantum realm?
Yeah.
Like they start to fill that in, because after I watched that, I was like, all right, what's this quantum realm about? Like, how is this? Because now that comes after Infinity War. So the snap happens, everybody's disappearing. So like, where did they go? And then in the quantum realm, like anything can almost happen. So I'm like, all right, is there time travel? Are the souls there? Like, is all of a sudden everybody's coming to Ant-Man and saying, hey, like, we're here, help us out. And then he's like, all right, I can get out, and then I'll figure this all out. So as the movie's going, as we get to that point now, the 5 years flash forward, that's what, as I was watching the movie, that's what was on my mind, was like, okay, where are they going with this? And then Ant-Man comes out and he's like, all right, we can time travel. So I was like, all right, that answers my question.
I think that scene for me, I was excited because I saw Infinity War, and the Infinity War, they snapped, wow, how are they going to get them back? What's going to happen? Then at the stinger for Ant-Man and the Wasp, the Janet Van Dyne character mentions to Scott, you're going in the quantum realm, watch out for, I think, time vortexes or something.
Yeah, that's
a
it.
phrase. And that's when my mind hit. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that is. So even last summer, I was thinking of an inkling, maybe they'll do it. But I like how they kind of thread, because you're right, the Ant-Man and the Wasp, they make it small, but it's the scope of, it's a larger story that they're telling through little breadcrumbs.
So we've now.
And one more, sorry
Okay,
to cut you off. Yeah, but another thing too that Marvel's really good at, in my opinion, for like I guess casual fans, you want to call it, not like the diehards, like Ant-Man, like, because if you talk to a diehard, they're like, oh, Ant-Man's great, but like a casual, like me personally, I'm just like, they do a great job of making you knowing how to introduce a character and what to do with that character. Like Ant-Man is just like not really a smaller character, but somebody that you need to succeed. So what do? Bring in Paul Rudd, make it more of a comedy. So they know, like, in that sense, they know what they're doing. They do a great job of like, all right, this is what we're going to do to get you sucked in. Like even with Guardians too. And
that's the key to all the best Marvel movies, in addition to having great villains, have had great use of humor as part of the movie.
Absolutely.
Which is the reason why I've always liked the Marvel movies more than the DC movies. Although
DC's got more of the darker undertone. Like even after a while, like I was telling you earlier,
darker undertone. There's also this thing where their movies are terrible.
Yeah, well, that's also true. Although like Batman, I enjoyed Shazam.
But like Batman was always like kind of like lighthearted.
It's just terrible writing. Sorry, I'm sorry. I keep
Hey, listen,
you off my
nobody's happy with Batman versus Superman. Nobody is.
But like all the new DC movies came out, and I've seen them, and I'm just like, it's too dark. Like there's no comedy. There's no like
oftentimes
you need
it's visually dark too.
Yeah. We're about to go on a tangent here, apparently, I guess, because I don't understand how you can have a comic book universe or like a movie universe like DC, and you have the worst CGI I've ever seen. It's terrible. Like the only thing I can think of is they're like, oh, let's try to make it more comic booky. No, it's terrible.
No, Steppenwolf was
your
awful.
writing's crap.
Yeah.
Your movies are crap. I'm sorry. I had to get that.
No, I agree.
And look, and don't get me wrong. I don't hate DC. So if anybody listens to this, like, oh, DC's the Marvel fanboy. Like, no, I actually enjoy DC.
No, we all start. I mean, we all.
If you want my honest opinion, DC's got the best villains. Like their villains are phenomenal.
The Joker is still one of the greatest villains of all time,
if not the best.
As is Lex Luthor. However, not great. All right, so. Moving along as we are now at the 53-minute mark of our podcast.
Yeah, we knew this.
We actually come now to the
come back for part 2, folks.
The most important character in the entire movie, the Rat. If it wasn't for the Rat, accidentally kicking on Scott's van with the quantum realm generator in it, nothing would have happened. But a rat goes across the console, hits the right switch, and Ant-Man is spit out the back of the van into a holding area in San Francisco. Why no one ran?
How did that stuff get there? Like,
Yeah.
why was it there?
Well, I figure.
Well, they were in what? It was like a parking garage,
They were
right?
on top of a parking garage.
Yeah,
So
True. But if I'm not mistaken, though, it was in a thing. It said Scott Lang on
Yeah.
it, and it had all of his possessions in there.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe they had a holding thing for all the people that got snapped.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Because
They
his
had
name's
that.
on the thing. His
Yeah.
name's on the memorial that he runs to.
yeah. I don't know
think-
why. I'm hoping at some point that gets explained as well as to why. If nothing, Endgame was great was a true fan service movie because it answered a lot of those questions we had always wondered about, and now we know. So the rat does his thing. He's popped out. First thing he does is drive cross country with the van to the Avengers headquarters, which he had burgled once before, and Cap and Black Widow are sitting there, and he comes in and tries to explain his cockamamie idea for
that was
for a
good
time
comic
heist.
relief right there. Like
very
it's been
important.
dark undertone the whole movie, and you're waiting, and then all of a sudden he pops up on the screen. It's like,
Realistically, this is when the comedy really begins in this movie.
yeah, that's what I felt the same way. And the whole hey, it's me, Ant-Man. You guys know me. Scott Lang. I got really big.
You
Ant-Man.
guys can let me in. Yeah, I got really big.
So he comes in, he's babbling with all these ideas, and they recognize that because they're so desperate to still do something, because they know that they still want to do more, and there's nothing that they can do. But now they see this glimmer of hope, and their first decision is to go see Tony, who we now see living in a beautiful lakeside cabin somewhere. We'll say upstate New York, maybe, and we see him walking to a play set area, and we realize. He had a baby. There's a child. He sits down in a little tiny chair and he says, Morgan, it's time for lunch, I think. And out pops his daughter wearing a Iron Man mask.
What was your
Iron Man.
Also,
what was your
hold on.
first thought on that?
I need to go back for a second. Sorry, I apologize. Because the first moment where I actually started to tear up was when Scott comes out of the quantum realm and he finds Cassie.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
true.
all right, well, this is where I was like, oh, we're starting this. This early.
that
with
was
this?
actually one of the only moments that pulled me out of the movie, because if it was 5 years later, I remember Cassie and
Oh
Ant-Man
yeah,
and
she would have
Wasp-
been like, my thing was like she looked a little
She'd
too
be
old.
about she
Yeah,
would
I
have
was
been
thinking,
about
yeah.
10, 11, 12 years old at
Nah,
the
well,
most.
she was 10 at the end of what's it called, wasn't she?
Was she 10?
I'm pretty sure she was 10 at the end of Ant-Man. Or Ant-Man and the Wasp. They have to go back and see if they say what birthday it is in the first Ant-Man.
I'll have to check it out, because I felt like she was. Now maybe I was thinking all the way back to Ant-Man, but I thought she was still younger than that. In
I thought she was around 10 years old.
because the girl that comes to the door looks
It's-
to be about 16, 17.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure of that timing quite well. Like I thought they might have aged her up too much. Like I would have been happier if
Probably.
she'd been like just a year or two
Yeah.
younger. I think
Anyway,
that might have
I
been.
apologize. I didn't.
No, it's fine.
I didn't need to say that because it was on my mind. I had to say it. You're going to get used to it. This is going to happen a lot.
No, what was your first thoughts when you saw the Iron Man mask on Morgan?
I laughed.
I thought it was a toy. I thought it was a toy mask, not a real mask.
See, I was like,
oh, that's right, because it's the rescue mask.
It's the rescue mask. It's the well, but I mean it's not said at the time. But it's,
the first thought was, all right, what's happening to Iron Man and who's taking over? Like, where's that going in the storyline? Like, are they going to go Iron Woman? Are they going to go the kid in the third movie? I felt like it was because they kept like focusing on the mask. So as I'm watching it, I'm like, what are they foreshadowing here? What are they trying to?
well, you're
tell
right.
us.
They did
These are questions
foreshadow.
you ask
but-
after the movie's over.
Yeah.
Not while you're watching. You're not just like, oh my god.
Well, no, it's just I'm sitting
In
there
my
watching.
pers-
I'm
that's what
taking it all in, and I'm like, okay, wait, that's got to play into something because they're showing the mask. She's like not taking it off, and like the scene is like they're getting close-ups on the mask. I'm like,
I
something's
see
up
what you're
there.
saying. I
Like,
see what you're saying
like
now, yeah.
my mind just like as the movie's going on, it just like starts to wander a little
when
bit.
you said that, I thought you were talking about like way in the future, like, oh well, who's gonna be the new Iron Man? Who's
No,
gonna do this?
I
Who's
didn't
gonna
think
do
that until the end of the movie, like after the funeral and everything. I'm
Gotcha.
like, all right, where are they going to play that?
Yeah. Damn it. I forgot to mention that there were spoilers, that we were going to be
Language.
talking about spoilers part of the whole thing. That was a callback to the Avengers Age of
Ultron.
Ultron. Yes, thank you. We forgot. We get it. We make sure when we do the write up, we have to put spoilers everywhere. I might even create a spoiler front to this podcast just to make sure that people understand there'll be lots of spoilers.
I think that's a great idea. I know Tom O'Shea will not, are one of our devoted fans. I almost feel like texting him tonight.
I don't want to get that hate mail for spoiling.
I will text Tom tonight and be like, Tom, do not listen to this podcast because he's not seen. He needs to get caught up with a few of them.
Well, you should definitely record something.
I'll make sure to title it spoilers as well.
Yeah,
spoilers everywhere.
That's a downside of being a teacher.
I'll do it right now for you.
So many kids they ruined Infinity War for me because I couldn't go that weekend. I went like not the weekend, but like during the middle of the week. And I had like already known the plot line.
Yeah.
So I was like, don't say anything. Don't tell me anything. And the kids were talking about it today. Like, and it's only been out.
I told you, man. You should have just been like, anybody who talks about this movie in my classroom, you're failing. I don't care.
Well, I saw a great meme, and it was basically the Thanos snap. And it was like, if you reveal anything, I will snap you out of this room or something like that. And I was tempted to print it out.
It was the Russo brothers did say that the moratorium on spoilers was going to be lifted as of this Monday today, but then we found out the reason as in their minds it was being lifted today. It's because Spider-Man
came out,
which is full of spoilers. In the Spider-Man trailer.
I've been holding a grudge for the past couple of months, but I'll get into that towards the end because it was a Reddit thing from this guy. But anyway,
it's very dangerous.
Let's just say I was very petty.
So we go to Tony's house, and they come in, and he says he's happy to see them, and they bring up this cockamamie time heist, and I think this is the first time this is brought up a couple of times in the movie. This is the first time where all the other time travel movies that have come out before get denigrated by one of the smarty pants of the Avengers Endgame universe, and I think it's Back to the Future. I think he refers to Back to the Future in that sense.
Well, they reference that. They reference Bill and Ted.
Yeah. Well, that's in a later scene, though, with Rhodey.
Quantum Leap? Do they make fun of that?
They make
Quantum
Leap.
Yeah, it's a bunch of lesser known, not lesser known, but like...
And even a reference to Die Hard at one point.
Yes.
Which is not a time travel.
I forgot. Wait, that's not a time travel.
But this is the first one where we start to realize that everything we know, and I thought it was brilliant that they put it in there, everything we know about time travel that we've learned from the movies is apparently all crapola.
Well, apparently I just heard today that they brought in actual like theoretical physicists.
I was reading that. I read that article.
Yeah, to like make sure the science was actually spot on for it.
Which is another good thing that the Marvel universe does. They considering that it moves between science and fantasy and the supernatural and magic. That's what I liked what they did with Doctor Strange. Even in Doctor Strange, they say, well, what you might refer to as a spell could also be thought of as a program. And that was their way of sort of tying the mythological with the scientific. So I thought they did a great job with that. And I think Endgame works that way as well. But I agree with you completely that this was another example of the humor coming into it, and another example of actually thinking through telling the audience that everything you think you know, you don't know. So Ant-Man was really an avatar for the rest of us going, okay, I need to dispel all my previous things about what I believe about time travel thanks to Quantum Leap and all this.
And I need to go back to seeing the movie and just focus on that conversation because I got lost in it.
Oh, no, not until later. I get really confused.
Yeah, the later ones. Well, we'll get into it in a second, but when they get to New York. But I thought there was a great explanation that cleared everything up for me because I was having a hard time understanding it. And then later on, I saw an explanation. I was like, got it. Now I understand. But so they go meet Tony, and they talk to Tony, and Tony's like, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not going to be a part of this. You guys can come in for lunch, but only if you don't talk shop. And I thought that was a nice way of that scene, but of course we find out later that just showing up was apparently enough. So now
you knew he was going to get sucked in.
Well, yeah, of course.
Well, the one thing too is I was thinking about was even though he lost, this is kind of peace in our time. This is what he's been trying to achieve for years now, and they lost, but he still got what he wanted. So he doesn't really need to do anything anymore. Like, it's the same thing with Captain America. He's now resorted to being, running these groups for people to vent because he's got nothing else to do.
There's a reference to that I was reading about that Thanos and Tony were one and the same. They both wanted the same. Like Tony wanted it for Earth, Thanos wanted it for the whole universe, and that they were both trying to achieve, like again with Ultron and going in that aspect of it, and then obviously with the Infinity
Did they ever
Gauntlet.
explain how Thanos knew them?
Not
I'm
really.
assuming it's from New York, but
Well,
Yeah, 'cause he engineered that, so he would have known
Yeah.
from Loki, I guess. I don't know.
that's because that's when.
They never really describe it.
but Thanos is
No.
the only one that knows Tony. He doesn't know anybody else.
No,
he doesn't.
the
He
Aven- no,
never
'cause he says
reference
later in the
anybody.
movie, he's like the Avengers. Like when I guess we'll get to that.
Okay.
I think.
So the next scene is probably one of the best scenes of the movie. It's the first time we're introduced to the Professor Hulk, the blended.
You think it was the best part of the movie?
Well, I think it was one of the funniest parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Well, it was the next big reveal. Was
True.
the first time
Very
we get
true.
to see Professor Hulk.
He
sitting
really
in-
didn't do anything for me. The whole Professor. I was waiting for one good switch to the Hulk, smash things up, pick somebody up, and just throw him around
Well,
like they
that's
did
'cause
with Loki.
He's not that character anymore. He's now this blended Banner.
Banner.
Hulk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I understand why they did it, but I wasn't the biggest fan of it.
It did.
I feel like at times it was a little much, but after I thought about it, it made more sense because
Yeah.
he's doing the whole like dabbing thing. He's taking pictures with the kids. Because the thing about it is too is you got to realize that Bruce was never comfortable in his own skin,
right.
because he's always got to worry about the Hulk. But
Right.
now they just merged the two. Like I would have liked them to go differently with that character, in my personal opinion. Like I have no problem with Professor Hulk if you do it. I just didn't like the way they did it personally.
It was definitely a throwaway scene in the sense that here's a moment we're going to introduce Professor Hulk.
As he's eating a literal mountain of pancakes,
Yes.
and bacon.
Yes. But that he become a minor, celebrity and wherever he was, and nobody still knows who Ant-Man is. What was interesting though was so Ant-Man asked the kids who came to take a picture with the Hulk, "Oh, do you want to take a picture with me?"
That
Which was ridiculous in every level and funny. However, Captain America's sitting right there, and I mean Captain
They
America.
didn't flinch on that.
Yeah, it was like, you don't want a picture with Captain America. Like now Captain America wouldn't be like that, but you would think that they would have recognized.
I think it's
Captain
more
America.
along. Well, for one, the Hulk is way more noticeable,
That's true.
clearly. But I think it's also too is like, Cap doesn't really like flaunt. You know what I mean?
But
Well,
remember,
doesn't
in,
Spider-Man say something is it Civil War?
No.
And he's like, the movies, because you watch the end.
it's Spider-Man Homecoming. Remember there was the Captain America
that's right.
workout.
So you got the
thing.
tension.
Yeah. It was part of detention. That's right. So most kids would have seen Captain America, granted in the least attractive uniform that Captain America had, the original Avengers uniform, which we'll also get into later. But so anyway, meets the Hulk, and that's sort of a throwaway scene, but it sets up Professor Hulk. And from there, we go back to Tony's. We go back to Tony's house, and it's late in the evening, and he's got. Friday working the numbers on the possibility of, doing time travel.
Is that a throwback to is it Iron Man 2 where he kind of like gives up on it always seems like Tony gives up, but really he giving up. He's always got it like playing in the back of his mind. So are they kind of throwing back to
I think so.
a little bit in the films?
I think a lot of what this movie was, going back to that fan service commentary, that here are all the things you were used to, and we're gonna adjust them a little bit, but these people are still who they are, so they're gonna react the way you would expect
Would
them
normally
to react. So then he goes back and miraculously figures out time travel, but here's the thing: so the time travel part was the easy part of that scene for him. The hard part was talking to Pepper about, hey, so I figured out time travel. And Pepper, God bless her, that's one of the great scenes in this movie. She does not do the Rocky's wife moment of,
You're gonna lose.
yeah, she doesn't fight against him. She knows who she's married to. She knows who this guy is. She's been with him for decades probably, and she's like, you know what? You got to be you. You got to do what you got to do. If this is something you can do, I know you're going to be tenacious about it. And she ends up supporting him and going forward, and it was wonderful. It was that was a moment where I was like, wow. Oftentimes women are not written particularly well in these movies, and here was what would be what I would think. Like at first, you can see the disappointment in her eyes, like, oh no, we're going down this road again. but she understands who her husband is, and she ends up supporting him. And so instead of creating a character that movie people may not like because they're resistant to this person in the movie, here we have somebody that's being very supportive. I always liked how sort of Marvel does that.
Well, was Happy Snap? Because I was wondering about that with the way she reacted.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Because we don't know where Happy is at this point. Like, were they both affected? Because did Happy get snapped in that? I don't.
I'm not sure I know the answer to that question.
No,
I think we're gonna find out in July.
Talk about it because because I think the only time you see him in that movie is at the end
at the funeral.
Yeah. Which then answers the question of the first Far From Home trailer, how him and Aunt May were like talking. He's like, "Oh, is that a new shirt? Yeah, how'd you know?"
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about Aunt May and Happy being a couple yet, but I'm working on it.
We'll get there.
Give us till July. So anyway, so he figures out time travel. He does the thing. And the next thing we see is the Avengers actually working on time travel. And this is where we get another batch of comic relief as Ant-Man goes into the time machine. Yeah, Scott Lang is put into the machine and comes out as a baby, comes out as an old man, comes out as himself again. Takes a lot of figuring out to happen, comments that he may have urinated. One of those characters urinated in the suit.
When did you guys pee my suit?
And then he was like, well, maybe it was me that peed my suit. So then it's that a dejected Captain America walks outside and sees rolling up in another one of his, I think it's an Audi. I think it's an Audi R8.
I believe so.
Sees
just Audi. I don't know about.
I think it's an R8.
I could have used the Iron Man intro music like in Avengers. Just
that would have been nice.
A little throwback to AC/DC there. I would have enjoyed that.
So Tony rolls up and, how you doing? And he immediately knows that something has to have been going wrong, and he points out that what you need is what I've just created, time GPS, which is a great way of getting around. At moments like that, I'm like, sure, I'll believe that. Whatever. Let's go with time GPS. So then he gets out and I don't know quite which one it is, but he presents Cap with his shield. And Cap takes the shield and is very happy, and everybody's reunited.
I think it's if I was gonna, I would think it'd be the one that he dropped, and he's like, "That's mine.
Yeah,
you didn't make that," and he drops it at the end of Civil War.
Yeah, but then I agree, but there'll be a shield discussion that comes at the end of the movie as well. So from there they go, and I'm sort of speeding up because we're already talking for an hour and 11 minutes, so I'm going to speed through some of this stuff. So they get into the time. They basically, so Tony shows up. They reformat everything. Tony makes a derogatory remark about Rocket, calls him Ratchet, and Rocket turns, and as Rocket's working on the time machine. Or the quantum thing, turns back to Tony and goes, "Hey, listen, Yumi, you're only a genius on Earth, not the rest of the universe," which I thought was a nice setting, putting him in place. So they get everything that's set up. They do the So in the midst of all this, there was one scene that happened, and that's this is where Scarlet Widow or Black Widow goes and finds Clint, who's been murdering people all across the world.
Well, at that point too, they go and get Fat Thor though.
Oh,
Hulk and Rocket go.
Let's do one at a time. So let's start with.
You don't want Fat Thor first.
Okay, we'll go with Fat Thor.
My spirit animal.
Let's go with Fat Thor then. Okay, so after Hulk, Professor Hulk and Rocket go and find Thor in New Asgard, which is in Norway, and they roll up in some beat up old pickup truck, and
there,
and all the Asgardians are just apparently just fishermen.
That's why I started laughing. That's why I was laughing off. I was laughing off Mike because I just remember that scene where you first see Thor. Just go.
Okay, so we roll up and we see Valkyrie sitting there, and they talk to Valkyrie, and Valkyrie's not going to see you, and we know something's wrong, but he's like, they're not going to see you. So that's when Hulk and Rocket go in, and they go into the Thor's house. And man, what a scene we see then. There's Korg and Meek, and it's the first time, and we're not quite sure what we're looking at because they start sort of high up, but it's a very bearded Thor. And then as the camera pans out, we see we see a very gelatinous
Melted
Thor.
ice cream.
Melted
Like
ice cream, right.
Melted ice cream, all the beer.
Yeah, and he's not
Now,
happy.
supposedly that was an ode to the actual Thor story, to the Norse god story, that he is really supposed to be this like drunken god. Supposedly, that's something I read.
Right.
Like that was like a throw to like an honor to the actual
In my
story.
days at university, I studied the mythology of the Norse people. And Jay, you are wrong. No, I don't know.
I actually did, and I can't remember. The no, that's true. I would absolutely believe that because the Marvel does like to throw those little nuggets in there. So drunken Thor is sitting there with beer bottles all around, a deep smell. Korg and
That's
Meek.
the best. Is Korg's just sitting there playing Fortnite. He's like, oh, the kid's back.
Well, that's the best part.
Call
is it's
me a name.
yeah, it was like it was a Fortnite thing, and Fortnite, of course, has the crossover with the Marvel stuff. So there's all these like Marvel characters and Marvel objects in Fortnite right now, which I love, which my son was playing. But yeah, then Thor gets on and yells at the mean guy, the mean boy, in somebody's basement somewhere.
Going to rip your arms off and shove them up your butt.
But it's when brings up the idea of we got to get the gang back together, and says Thanos for the first time, which we see that the deep depression come over Thor again as he begs him.
He's just been drinking himself into oblivion to forget those times.
Yeah,
which is what I'm saying too. Is I heard a lot of people say they didn't like Thor's character in this movie. I didn't mind it because it shows you. It's a real life interpretation, like even of what depression can do to you.
Yeah.
Even if you're a god, you know what I mean. Like I said earlier, he's lost literally everything.
Yeah.
His family's dead. His best friend's dead.
It's
he's got Korg and Meek now.
Yeah, well,
so he's good.
Yeah,
but
it's classic PTSD. It's
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's like I understand where people are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sucks. But at the same time, I enjoyed the character.
I thought so too. I thought it was a good representation. When I first saw it, when you first saw it, it was comic relief, and it's done throughout most of the movie in a comedic way. As with all Marvel movies, everything's got a layer to it, and there's a layer of deep sadness which we see later when he makes it back to Asgard.
What I love about Thor, it seems like Tony Stark's character and Captain America's character were kind of winding down. They did their first couple movies. I think that guy, Chris Hemsworth, the actor, and Thor Ragnarok, he tapped into his humor side. And I feel like he's been on such a run, that character. I'm very interested to see.
It seems like they just figured out how to write it.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's also the first time that they turned over some of that to the actor, because I've heard him talk.
He didn't like the way they originally did it.
No,
but I also heard them say he was really nervous that the Russos were going to revert him back to what he was before, and they weren't going to run with the new character. But they were like, no, trust me. You got it. We're good. We're good.
Well, I've heard other people talk about him on regarding other movies, like the Ghostbusters movie, the much maligned Ghostbusters movie. But I was watching a British chat show, and it was the four leads of Ghostbusters that were talking about Hemsworth, and they were saying, now keep in mind these are four comedic geniuses, female comedic geniuses, and they're saying Chris Hemsworth is one of the funniest people they've ever known. So he's super attractive, and he's so big dude, but he's also has incredible comic timing. So I've seen him in other movies where he is in fact very funny, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing Men in Black, the new Men in Black movie, because I do think he comes across as pretty funny. So I'm looking forward to seeing the humor. So I think as Marvel's sort of the MCU evolved, I think they realized that they were better served drawing on the abilities of their actors a little bit more and not pigeonholing them into.
Well, who was it?
roles.
Was it Josh Whedon that did the first Avengers?
The first two.
He did the first two. I read something that it was one of those. They didn't know how to write them, so he made them like Shakespearean, in the way that he talked.
Yeah. Which is a surprise because Joss Whedon is usually really good at writing, and his stuff is great. But that has been one of the holes until Taika Waititi got into it with Thor Ragnarok, and then it was like,
well, in the first
blossomed.
Avengers, since you said he was like Shakespearean, is that why Tony's goes with that? Are they punning on themselves there?
Just thou know you have her drapes. Shakespeare in the Park.
So we've met Fat Thor, and they're able to convince him by saying there's a lot of beer in the plane that, and he's like, "Oh, what kind?" And he comes and joins them.
Whatever kind you want.
And then Black Widow, on the other hand, has to go to Japan and go grab Clint, who's now in the Ronin gear, although they don't actually make reference to Ronin at all, the Ronin character. But he's basically killing the Yakuza throughout Japan, sort of mercilessly.
Well,
and
that's the part where Scarlet Witch is talking to she's
Black
talking to the
Widow.
holograms of everyone.
Black Widow.
That's what Rhodey's doing. Rhodey's trying to track him down.
Right.
That's
At a
what
cartel in Mexico, yeah.
Yeah, because he was like, I've never seen anything like this. He's like, what he's doing is a little
Yeah.
much.
But at the same time, he's also saying, I don't want to get involved because he's doing the work of the good guys in a very bad way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a brief scene, and he doesn't want to be found, but she's able to find him, and she holds his hand lovingly, and apparently that's all it took to get him to come back.
I never got that whole relationship between the two of them because I felt like they were trying to bring them together, but then you find out that he has a wife and kids.
I think they have just one of those bonds because that's
just
really,
a partnership bond.
Yeah.
It's
kinda.
that, and it's realistically, if you think about it, probably the only person that Scarlet Witch truly trusts, or not Scarlet Witch, who Black Widow truly trusts.
I think there's some truth to that, and I get the impression it's never really alluded to, and maybe it will in the Black Widow movie that's supposed to come out next year. I'm sure it's going to be a flashback movie. I have a feeling it was Clint that rescued her from her time as a KGB
Well, she
agent.
says that. She says that, and I think it's in Avengers where she says like she was working for the KGB.
Mm-hmm.
He was like set to hunt her down or something like that, and instead he actually like talked her into coming to Shield.
Yeah,
and they keep talking about Budapest.
Yeah, so something happened in Budapest. So someday we'll find out.
We'll find out. Yeah,
apparently not this movie,
Budapest
but
very differently.
Yeah. So, but she's able to get him back, and he comes back, and the first thing he does is they're trying to work out all the time travel stuff, and Scott's really worried about the Ant-Man suit and making sure they have enough Pym particles. And what does he do? He blows through whatever an amount of Pym particles are.
10.
They only have.
I think it was 10.
Now they only have one more test thing that they can do, and it's Clint that volunteers to do the test run in the time machine. He goes off. They send him through the time portal. He ends up back at his farm, and he's still alive. His family is still alive. He hears him. He actually runs in to go talk to him. He picked up a baseball glove, goes running in to talk to his daughter, and then he's automatically brought back into the back out. But he brings the glove with him, proving that he was able to travel successfully through time.
Which then in turn,
then
our first alternate reality is made.
Yeah, exactly.
In theory.
So then the whole group comes together. Oh, and this is where the latest discussion on what time travel is, and this is where they're saying Professor Hulk explains that all the mythology of time travel that we've known before, it's all garbage. Don't ignore all of it. It's completely different.
So Back to the Future was BS?
Yeah, which is great. Which also means Back to the Future exists in the MCU, which I also like, because that was something that I truly appreciated in Captain Marvel. In Captain Marvel, the Stan Lee cameo references one of my favorite movies, Mallrats, and Kevin Smith wept when the next day after he watched the movie, because that now means that his movie is part of the MCU, which I thought was outstanding.
I love that too, because I was a huge fan of that movie when I was in high school, and like all Kevin Smith movies. And I saw that, I was like, yeah. Still not my number one cameo though.
Let's see, the number one cameo. I think my number one cameo.
I thought you said that was your favorite.
Oh,
on Facebook.
Oh yeah, that is absolutely my favorite cameo. Why? What's your favorite cameo?
My favorite cameo by far.
Yes.
Deadpool, when he's the strip club DJ. Destiny to the stage.
But you know what I heard? I heard that was the one he was least comfortable with. Like I
can't imagine why.
Well, they actually closed the set. So when he was on set, it was just him and the people that were in that one shot. So there were no strippers. There was none of that. So they were being very respectful to Stan as part of
they
that.
should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree, but I don't know what it is. It's just so funny.
Oh no, it's outstanding.
I think mine's Cold War.
Cold War? Civil War?
Civil War, sorry. When Tony gets the package.
Oh,
and he's
Tony
he's
Stank.
Stank, yeah.
Tony Stank.
Tony
Yeah,
Stank,
that is a
yeah.
great one.
Yeah. Yeah, right here, Tony Stank.
So
not going to let that down, are you?
so they're all on the pad, and they go off in their different ways, and they each go into different areas. So let's see who goes where.
Where do you want to start off?
Cap,
It's
Tony, and
Cap,
the Hulk.
Tony and Hulk go back to New York.
Yeah.
I could have done
Rocket.
without that scene, by the way.
Which
What?
one?
The New York. I felt like
What? That was all the backstory to Avengers. That was brilliant. Okay.
I would have gone.
Here's where you're wrong, Jay.
I want to throw my microphone at you right now. And just
I would.
hit the
I liked.
cord.
I liked when they went straight to the 70s. I don't know. Like there was a lot of comic relief in the New York part, and you did need the time stone. Like I got that. Like you needed that part, but the Tesseract part.
Okay,
Where they were going back for the Tesseract.
Okay, that you're right. Well, no. Okay.
That was the only part. Like I'm just.
So
Like,
here's all the areas where you're wrong, Jay. So
Everything that just came out
actually,
of your
literally
mouth.
everything you just said was wrong. So all of that was really important for a lot of reasons. So they go back. So Cap, Tony, and Hulk go to New York. Thor and Rocket go to Asgard. Nebula and Rhodey go to Morad, and Nat and Clint go to Vormir, which is really sad. So Cap, Tony, and Hulk in New York. So Hulk has to go. The Hulk scene might have been my most favorite because that's the one where we see not only was the Ancient One present when the Battle of New York happened, she was actually wiping out any of the Chitauri that were flying past her place on Bleecker Street. What's it called?
Sanctum
Yeah, the
Sanctorum.
Sanctum
Yeah.
Sanctorum, right. And then, Hulk makes it up and says you shouldn't do that and don't go in there, and she pushes Banner out. Well, that's the scene that explains, I thought, did the best job of explaining
The alternate universes.
The alternate
universes and why
Yeah.
time had to work the way
I was
it
okay.
did.
No, you needed that scene. It was
Yeah.
just the whole. They're back in the Avengers Tower. I just felt like if you need the
But didn't you
chop
like
a
to
few
see
minutes.
that? Okay, we got the reference to Captain America and America's ass, and by the way, agreeing
Language.
that. Well, in this case, it was actually
I
the
would,
movie.
okay, well, if we're doing that, that's I keep laughing. It's just like, that is America's ass.
Yeah, at the very end of
Just
the
admiring his own.
but also ridiculing the uniform that he was wearing, which was easily the worst of the Captain America
Yeah.
uniform.
And on top of that,
In the
when he's just like,
MCU.
I can do this all day. Yeah, look, we know.
Yeah,
dude,
I know.
All right,
I know.
I'm tired
And-
of hearing
Well,
it.
yeah, he grew like you could see he had grown up from all these
Yeah.
movies. Now he's not this poor innocent guy from the 1940s.
He might have had
Yeah,
the most references back to previous movies in one scene. In addition to, there's the elevator scene,
which
with
goes
Crossbones,
to
Winter
the
Soldier.
comics.
I honestly thought
Yeah.
that retcons the one of the biggest travesties in the comics, where you find out
the new, I think it's like Secret Empire.
yeah,
or something like
Captain
that.
America. They
Something
say
Well,
like
'cause
Captain
they-
America's a Hydra agent.
well, because they go
He's
old
actually
man
working
Cap.
for the Red Skull the whole time.
Yeah, well, in the comics, he's old man Cap, and then he needs to be young again. So when they go to make him young again,
It splits him into two.
Is that what
I
it does?
I think
'Cause
if
they
I-
use the
if I
Mind
remember
Stone.
correctly, what it is Old Man Cap. I think it's an evil version and a good version, because I think at the end of Secret Empire, what happens is they find the good version of Cap and they fight at the end to rule all Caps.
Right.
That sounds familiar.
I don't remember exactly. I didn't read it. I read like summaries on
Reviews
it.
of it.
The summary I
So-
read was that they used the Mind Stone on him. So
Well, your
you get-
opinion doesn't matter because you didn't like the New York scene in
Wasn't
Endgame.
there,
So
wasn't there a cosmic cube in there too? I thought.
I think so. Yes.
Well, what's great about the other thing that's great about the New York scene is the New York scene allows the new Disney Plus Loki movie
Well, that's how
series to exist.
You do get that.
Because you have
Exactly.
the failed attempt to get the Tesseract back, but
Whoa,
don't
whoa,
you
whoa,
need-
buddy,
and Loki-
whoa! We got a weight restriction here. Use the stairs. No stairs.
But doesn't that negate when they go back to the 70s? Doesn't that negate what just happened?
no, because
No,
it's
because-
before what happened.
Yeah.
So they're stealing an earlier Tesseract.
And it's one of those things. It's you go back in time. It doesn't affect your current. It doesn't affect your reality. What it does is it creates an alternate
reality.
Right.
So
See
him
that.
going back and stealing those pin particles, and the Tesseract from them, and Tony even talking to his father, and him seeing Peggy, like all those could theoretically create new
They
alternate
win it
universes.
off.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Somebody pointed out online, and I think it's like if you're watching a DVD of a movie, and you have like another DVD playing at the same time, you jump from one to the other. It's
Right.
kind of you're in a different version of that story,
Right.
different reality.
Right.
Multiverse
Though that's
theory
not
is,
that's not an explanation that's in the movie. That's an explanation that was. I think the directors were the one that actually came up with that explanation. I read that on Entertainment Weekly, I think.
Yeah, I think it was the same thing.
So anyway, so they try to get the Tesseract. They end up losing the Tesseract. They were able to get the Mind Stone at a Loki scepter. They were able to get the
Time Stone.
The Time Stone from
Which was key too, because when he's in the astro plane talking to her, he's like, "Well, Stephen Strange told us to do this," and she was like, "Why? He wouldn't give it up without a reason." Which is
and
how
that's when she realizes they must be on a path that they need to be on.
Yeah.
Which harkens back to Doctor Strange as to why she chose him to be her successor.
And the fact that she knew about him before,
Yeah.
Exactly.
like that even happened. Like it was 5 years before, or 5 or 4 years, and she was like, "Well, I don't meet him for another 5 years."
Yeah. So then they got to find a new version. So they lose the Tesseract to Loki, who picks it up off the ground, and so they realize, well, we don't have enough Pym particles, but we know there's one place that has Pym particles and the Tesseract. So they realize they have to go back to 1970s New Jersey to Camp Lehigh, and they get in there, and then we have 2 story breaks. We have Cap going to find the Pym particles and running across Peggy, and Thor going to Tony going to find the Tesseract and running into his dad, which I really liked the Cap stuff. The Tony stuff, that was great. That was a great father-son bonding moment. That kind of harkens back to when he didn't have a chance to say goodbye the first time.
I think it tied up all the loose ends with he and his dad. Like, he's come a long way. He's kind of reconciled a little bit. Like, was it Iron Man 2, right? Dad, he's
You are and will always be my greatest invention.
some invention and Dad, what are you trying to show me with the videos and everything?
I got really nervous during that scene because he's looking for a certain doctor and he's carrying chocolates and flowers, and I'm like, oh no, is Tony really about to find out that he's cheating on his mom? I got real nervous. I was like,
did not have that thought at all.
Nah, I didn't even think about that.
I thought I've seen enough of these to kind of see it with the foreshadowing, and I was like, oh no, Tony's getting closure. Something, the movie's called Endgame, so an inkling was like, oh great, he could, perish, because now they're wrapping this up with his dad. And it's weird because it's a different actor. It was Dominic Cooper in The Winter Soldier, and now it's John Slattery. It was a little weird for me. Those two guys, I think Dominic Cooper was the better Howard Stark.
I would agree
you're
with
talking about
that.
the guy in the first Avenger.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Sorry, the first Avenger.
But if you ask me, the only real relevance to this was these scenes. I thought it was nice fan service. He says, gets to say goodbye to his dad. And then Cap gets to see Peggy, which we assume at that point is going to be the only time he gets to see Peggy, which is great. But really, for me, the best part was seeing the original Jarvis from the Agent Carter TV show. Yeah, which Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, I think, is his name, and I really liked that. And
I like
it was
that
a nice little shout out and ode to that.
I thought, and that was an ode to my fan service, which made me very happy. So we got to pick up the pace a little bit because we're an hour and 30 minutes. But so those guys take care of their stuff. They end up getting everything they need and heading back. Then Thor and Rocket go to Asgard and suck the ether out of Jane Foster, where really, I mean, they succeed at that, and that's great, but really it's the only real strong element of that scene was the fact that Thor got to see his mom again. He got to see Frigga again.
And he needed, she actually helped him out a lot because, I guess she was always the person he would go to talk to.
Yeah.
And he had no one to talk to, and he's dealing with all this stuff, so he talked to her, and she seemed to kind of put him back, not on a completely straight path, but it seemed like she got through to him a little bit. She
centered him a little bit.
And
how does that scene end?
Return of Mjolnir.
That's right.
I'm still worthy.
So
they're chasing Rocket around like, get back here, Rabbit. We gotta go.
And certainly they do. It wasn't a particularly long scene. As I recall, it's the scene I went to the bathroom the first time I saw it, even not knowing what it was going to be. I was like, I'm good.
But it leads to something so much more.
But it did, and I got back in time for a Mjolnir to show up. So then the next scene is, I think the next scene is
it would be them going to Morad.
Morad, right?
And then they drop off Rhodey and Nebula. And then Clint and I keep wanting to call her Scarlet.
Yeah, Black Widow.
And Black Widow go to I can't remember what the
so the Morad scene was Morag scene was okay. It was basically, I mean,
it basically just sets up how Thanos gets back into the picture.
Right. So it's the fact that while Nebula is in that world, she ends up being reconnected into the Thanos system, and she can be hacked.
It wasn't even a hack though, was it?
It wasn't really. No,
Can
was.
Can you still hear me? Because I accidentally turned it off for a second.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. It wasn't really a hack though, because Ebony Maw was like, this is now, but it's from a different, like, it wasn't a hack. It was like, because they were both in the same timeline at the same time, like, it was just a mix, like, the frequencies got messed up.
Yeah.
So then, I guess, technically, after that, they hacked her to figure out what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah,
like and the Avengers' plans were, because that's when Thanos was like the Avengers,
right? Yeah. So they get back into it, and there's that connection. And
I did enjoy the stupid part of watching Peter Quill just dancing.
Yeah, and then
they cut the music, and you just see him dancing, and just Rhodey like,
this guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Real?
I did enjoy all the references back to the previous movies and seeing what we see and then seeing it from a completely different angle.
Yeah.
Like I as a guy who really enjoys film, I liked being able to see that. But that that part, I mean, that only important connection was the Nebula connection. That's also,
really. Well, there was fillers too. There was the whole Indiana Jones where Rhodey's ready to do the switch. It's like, you don't need to do that.
Go, don't walk in there. It's boom chat. You ever seen Indiana Jones?
Proving again,
spikes are gonna come up with dead bodies on them and everything.
The MCU just ripping apart all the other movies that exist, including a Disney movie like Raiders. But then the real heartfelt scene pops up with Nebula.
This is when ugly crying started becoming irregular.
Yeah, it was when Clint and Natasha have to go to Vormir, and having already seen Infinity War, and we know what happens in Vormir, and someone's gonna. I mean, at the minute
they didn't.
Yeah, they didn't, but we knew. And once again, nobody seems to. One of these days, we're going to figure out what happened to Red Skull, because I'm thinking when the Soul Stone leaves Vormir, that must release Red Skull to do something else. So I'm wondering what this ghostly Red Skull will do.
Well, that's my question that I have now: is when Cap's going back to return the stones, doesn't he have to encounter Red Skull?
Yeah, and how does he return the stone to Vormir? Like I think I've been thinking about that too. I don't know.
And if you return the stone, can't you? Didn't they say in Infinity War you could get a soul back? Like wasn't it like a give and take kind of thing? Wasn't there something about
you have to give a soul to get the stone, basically?
But if you're returning the stone, can't you get a soul back?
You know what? That's a good question.
I didn't even think about that. Jay, finally,
that might explain
involved in the conversation.
That might explain how Black Widow is capable of being a standalone movie.
Well, is it a standalone or is it a prequel? Because I keep hearing prequel, right? Like,
Jay, you were the first. Okay, I retract my.
That is honestly the first time I've ever heard that theory.
Yeah, and you know what? Something, Jay. After all the garbage we gave you earlier in the podcast, you're permanently allowed to stay here because that was fantastic. I haven't heard that referenced anyplace. Great job, sir. Way to. But
I salute you, sir.
Getting back to the Soul Stone moment, because we got to hurry it along. I did not know who was going to win or lose in the fight between Clint and Natasha to die.
I had a feeling it was going to be Natasha because there was a couple of scenes, even though going back to what we say, we don't trust the trailers, but there was a couple of scenes in the trailer where still weren't in the movie, but they were still going on in the, like, that haven't happened in the movie. So I kind of was like, but I think it just makes more sense too his whole purpose of dying, like for wanting to die, was the stuff that he was doing while he was Ronin. Well, she was like, look, she's like, we're going to reverse this. Your kids are going to need you.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that it was going to be the payoff that didn't come in Age of Ultron when we all thought that he was going to die, and then he didn't die. So
that's what I was thinking.
And I also think it's more meaningful that she dies than him.
So do I. I think it's better. And I also think, this is not an example. I've heard a lot of sort of blowback about this area where it's a fridging issue where she's just being used to advance the plot. Actually, I think they do a great job of sort of. This is a perfect summation of her life. She spent the last 5 years independently running the Avengers. She's been driven for one thing, and that one thing was to reverse the snap. And she knows that this has to happen, and she has to be the one to do it. So this is her one thing. So it actually ties up her choices perfectly by sacrificing herself so that Clint can get the stone and go back. So I thought it was I agree with you, Phil, that I think it was the perfect way to end that scene, and it had to be her. I was more worried as a film fan going, the typical trope would have been to finally get around to killing Clint, and they didn't do it because it's the MCU, and the MCU doesn't do what you think they're going to do.
No, because they're going to do something better.
They're going to do something better.
Yeah.
And they did.
But I think that's when I first, that's when I started to ugly cry. Like, I would tear up before then, but that's when I was like, well, here we go. Like, I thought...
I cried 4 times in the movie the first time I saw
about 4 or 5 times for me, legit.
Yeah, I was somewhere between tearing up, crying, and literally... This is weird. Tearless sobbing. I was like doing the... but no tears were coming out. It was really weird.
Like a fake
strange.
cry.
Yeah. So anyway, we finally get all the stones back.
See, here, also about that too, though, I didn't think... Because for a second there, he doesn't realize it's in his hand. So I'm like, tell me that didn't really...
Well, Thanos was the same way when he woke up on Vormir,
Yeah, but
too.
he gets up, like, where Clint's, like, looking around, like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, my God, like, tell me, like, he went through that and he didn't get the stone. But then he pulls out, it's in his hand, he pulls it out of the water.
That would just be murder.
Which is weird because I thought you couldn't handle an Infinity Stone unless you were a very powerful being.
He was wearing a glove. Apparently has to touch organic material. If you remember from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume
I thought he was
1.
wearing gloves, and I could be wrong.
It was in his gloved hand.
Okay.
So he makes it back. They all come back simultaneously, which was weird because they all started back at different times, but they all come back at the exact same time. So I haven't quite figured out how that works yet.
Well, I think that's like it for them to come back. Like, it doesn't matter how long they stay back there.
They come back at that
the present time. It all seems like the same time.
Okay. So they make it back. They all come back simultaneously. Everyone's ecstatic, elated, except for Barton, who is very sad. And then Professor Hulk goes, "Where's Nat? Where's Nat?" And then the next scene we see is all the guys hanging out at the lake. Apparently, that's near Avengers headquarters, which I never noticed before. And everybody's very upset. And the Hulk throws a bench into the tree line, I guess. And that is what essentially ends up becoming Nat's funeral. Is everyone feeling terrible about what occurred, and then they all go back to work. So Tony,
well, I think at that point it's like, all right, we'll take care of this later, but at the same time, you also got to remember they weren't expecting to have to deal with what they dealt with.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and
it is true. What was said before, they are never prepared to lose. They never think that they're going to lose.
Well, which is why they're going through like these emotional issues.
Yeah.
In this movie, you got Steve, you got even like Natasha. You got Thor.
Yeah.
They're all dealing with stuff because they're not used to losing.
Yeah. So they come back. They got Tony creates the Iron Gauntlet, and apparently they figure out how to use all the stones in about 30 seconds. So we'll say that storyline got advanced a little quick, probably right there.
I think it's probably just that simple.
See, I thought they were going to go back to can't think of the name of the place where Peter Dinklage was, because he's got the cast of the
Gauntlet or whatever, I forget.
Or whatever. Yeah.
And I thought they were going to do something with that. I was like, oh, he's going to mold them a new gauntlet, and they're just going to plug the stones in, or they're going to battle it out. Or...
Apparently, you don't need a dwarf when you have Tony to make an Iron Gauntlet for you. So they make the Iron Gauntlet. They stick the stones where they need to be. They all debate who's going to use it. Thor desperately wants to use it, but they say no. And Hulk realizes it's got to be him because he's the only one as strong as Thanos to be able to handle the harness of that much energy running through him.
Well, it also emits gamma too.
Right, and that's right. He's more useful to the gamma radiation. So he does it. He makes the snap. Everything happens. All the guys are hanging around for whatever reason in the room. Like I would have gotten behind glass or something.
Was
maybe
it the barn door?
Yeah, they use the barn door thing, which closes off the rest of the Avengers headquarters,
You also
but doesn't really protect them.
It's also one of those things where it's a possibility that are like, well, if this doesn't work, whatever, who cares? Let's just kill ourselves.
Ice
You know what I mean?
ourselves. All right.
Like, what's the point?
So Hulk snaps his fingers. He goes down hard, and the first thing we notice is when the barn doors open up again is Clint's phone ringing, and butterflies have come back to the Avengers.
But you're also forgetting about something very important that happens at this time,
What's that?
because we never talked about how past Nebula takes future Nebula's place. So
that's true.
Then she pulls the army. She pulls Thanos and them through the time thing.
Yeah, because the snap, and then all of a sudden they're getting blasted.
Right.
Yeah,
so-
well, that's the thing. Paul Rudd or Scott Lang sitting there. He's looking at like to get the birds and the butterflies flying around. He's like, it worked. Bam. And then that's when everything starts.
Right. And going back a scene back when they're still on Sanctuary 2 with Thanos, and Nebula captures Nebula 2014 captures Nebula 2023 and peels off a piece of the
metal
to make herself look like Nebula 2023. But Nebula 2023 is able to talk with Gamora as this thing sort of progresses, of 2014 Gamora. But what I thought was really interesting about all this, Thanos 2014 doesn't act like Thanos in an Infinity War. Thanos in an Infinity War is very calm and knows that he has a higher purpose for doing what he's doing. Like at the end of Infinity War, Thanos has been through as many trials as all the Avengers have, but he ends up winning. This version of Thanos is still the mad titan, and he hasn't had it. So he thinks he's due everything. So he just goes in flying hard, ends up using the time techniques to fly through the time machine, also destroying the time machine as he flies through it, gets into the atmosphere, fires into Avengers headquarters, destroys Avengers headquarters, yet none of the Avengers are really harmed at all. I think the only one who ended up getting harmed was Rhodey, because didn't his legs get knocked out? He
had to get out of the suit for whatever reason. And Rocket was sitting there like, you gotta get off me,
Yeah, Rocket was under the
and
rubble.
Then at that point, Professor Hulk's he's already hurt from the snap. So,
but he is holding up a lot of the rubble.
Yeah.
But finally, Ant-Man's able to get over there, and we're sort of getting a little ahead of this storyline, because while all that's happening, the three main Avengers, Thor, Cap, and Iron Man are all getting around, and Thanos is teleported down.
Well, at this point, Clint's got the gauntlet too, and he's running around trying to avoid the Outliers, or Outriders. I forget.
Outriders, I think is what they're called. So he's down in the subterranean area. So everyone's sort of scattered, trying to either stay alive, coming across Thanos, or running with the gauntlet. But he never puts the gauntlet on, which was probably smart of Clint. Yeah. He just runs with it.
Well, he just sat there and watched what it did to the Hulk. So.
Yeah, he's not putting that on his arm. So then, but Thanos comes down, and it's this point that Cap...
the shield breaks.
Well, no, we're not even there yet.
They
haven't even started fighting yet, but those three kind of determine for themselves that they're going to do something. And they have a similar moment that they had at Avengers Ultron, where they all sort of come together and decide, well, we got to fight them. And so it's just Thanos. Thanos hasn't brought down the rest of his army. It's just Thanos.
No, not at this point.
Yeah. And so he kind of decides to take on those three alone. And this is where we see, for the first time, we see Thor call on Stormbreaker and Mjolnir at the same time, brings the power of the lightning down on him. However, does not turn into skinny Thor, remains fat Thor.
I was waiting for that. I thought he was going to become skinny at that point. I thought it was like, all right, he's got all his power now. He's got both weapons, and he's
still fat Thor, but with a braided beard.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot it braided his beard for him.
Yeah. So all he got was the armor and the braided beard. Tony pulls on the Iron Man gear, and Cap's got his shield. And the three of them end up taking turns fighting with Thor. Now, here's where my memory lapses a little bit, because
how the fight goes down.
Well, yeah, because I remember I can't quite remember because at this point it's the beginning of the giant ending battle scene, and soon we're gonna have a zillion characters in there. So what I can't remember, they each sort of take them on.
I know
independently.
Thor's definitely the last one. I want to say it goes. If I remember, I don't.
No,
remember
I don't think
correctly.
Thor's the last one. I think
It's Cap.
Cap is the last one because
No. In the initial one,
yeah,
because I think what happens is Tony takes. I want to say it's either Tony or Cap. Obviously, takes the first charge. So they get knocked away. Or, one gets knocked away, takes the second charge. He gets knocked away. Then him and Thor going at it, and then Thanos has the axe over Thor's chest, and he's trying to push it in the same way that he did to him in Infinity War.
Right.
And then they cut away from the scene, and
So
you see Mjolnir picked up, and it's just like,
and that's
what's
when,
going
that's
on?
That's when Cap. Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
when-
that's when you see it
the two times
flying.
I saw it, that's when the crowd erupts in the movie.
Well, that's
theater.
the problem.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
like that's the part that that's why you probably don't remember before that.
Yeah.
Because it's like that scene itself is just so like I went nuts at that scene.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't cheer or anything like that, but I was literally in the back of my seat like this, like I was leaning back, and after that I was on the edge of my seat for the rest of that movie.
Yeah, because that was the rest of it's the battle scene, and the battle scenes are when a lot of the fan service happened, and seeing Cap wielding Mjolnir for the first time.
Well, and that's what I was saying. I alluded to this earlier, where it's like there was a theory that Captain America was actually worthy the whole time.
Yeah.
Like remember how in Ultron he moves?
And Ultron, yeah,
because if I remember correctly, he gives it that one tug.
Yeah.
It moves, and he's like, sorry, can't do it. But nice guy Cap didn't want Thor to feel, you know what I mean, like because he knew how much he cared about it. So he actually was like, sorry, can't pick it up. Even though he was worthy the whole time, he just didn't want to.
And that was what my
my
son asked me the other day is like about moving to about picking up the. He goes, well, Dad, how could I can understand how he can pick up Mjolnir, but how can he do everything with it that Thor did? And I said, well, if you remember the blessing that Odin put on it in the original Thor movie, he says, whoever be he worthy to pick up Mjolnir will have the powers of Thor. So at that point, once he's able to pick it up, he can also manipulate electricity or lightning the way that that he does. And he can spin it around really fast. We don't actually see him fly with it.
I don't even care about the fly. Everything else was so good.
it
I
was
don't
so
even
good.
care.
That would have been. It just paid off.
That whole scene paid off. Like,
Yeah. And then on top of that, he basically beats Thanos, but not completely. I mean, beats him up. However, at that point, Thanos brings in the rest of his army. He's able to get Mjolnir away from Cap.
He breaks the
shield using his gigantic sword, double-edged sword. Breaks the shield, and at that point, we see the next great moment happen.
On your left.
At this point,
Thor stands up.
I completely forgot about because you're talking about when Cap
puts straps half a shield back on,
and he's getting ready to run. He's getting ready. He's like, "All right, well, I'm on my own." And then you just hear something like the static.
The static
and you hear
happening.
Sam like, "Cap." Because I was at this point, you actually forgot that they even because it's been such an intense 20 minutes, half an hour of the movie.
Yeah.
You don't even remember they did the snap to reverse everything.
That's right.
And then it's just like, oh my god, I forgot this happened.
And then you see
my whole thing was I thought it was just going to be the characters, like the main, Wasp, Black Panther, all the main characters. I had no idea.
Nope.
What was about to happen.
The
was
entire
going
universe
to happen.
was coming
I
out.
had no idea,
Oh.
and I lost.
that was
it.
the next
And
time I
no-
lost it.
I lost it.
There's a nugget there too. They say as all the realms are opening up and everybody's coming through, Howard the Duck is supposed
Howard
to
the
come
Duck's
out
next
with
to-
this
next to the Wasp.
giant machine gun or
That's
something.
right. And Kraglin's in it too, and I didn't see Kraglin.
So again, you got to go back and see it a few times just to pick up those little.
I tell you,
nuggets.
when the movie comes out, when Deadpool came out, I watched it at Deadpool every night for 30 straight nights.
I watched that's when Infinity War came out. I literally watched it probably twice a day.
I can tell you right now, when Endgame comes out on digital release, I will watch it every night because you will just find new things you didn't.
There's
see
always
in it.
going to be something.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
No,
So
That's why
yes,
I wanted to go see it again before we did this, but I never got a chance.
that's okay. Be committed next
I
time.
think I just want to say my favorite shot in the film before. With Captain America, he puts that shit before everybody comes up. There's that scene of the Thanos army approaching, and you see Cap just standing there on the top of the hill ready to fight. That image to me is just striking. That is him.
Yeah, that was-
He's all alone, and the armies, he's not backing down, and then you see his friends come up.
Yeah.
Cinematically,
So
yeah,
on your left happens.
you see all the rings.
Yeah.
All the rings starting to open up.
Yeah.
And then,
It's just
and
like-
what I didn't expect was, much like you said, Phil, everybody coming through. So you had Asgardians coming through. You had
Wakanda.
Ravagers, the
you
Wakandans.
had the Sorcerer Supreme.
So all
Sorcerer-
all of them.
Sorcerer
Yeah, I thought
Supremes,
that
yeah.
was.
Wow. I mean, so it really was the entire hero
just-
universe.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
But you know what you didn't
it's-
see? You didn't see Jessica Jones or Luke Cage or
If they would have
Iron
threw them
Fist.
in there, I would have absolutely
I wanted
lost
to see,
it. Or
the only fan service I
Quake.
didn't get, or Quake, I didn't get Phil. I'm now granted Phil's dead at this point, but in all the Marvel movies from the Avengers forward, we never got Phil back. We never even got a reference to Phil. I like we got Maria Hill, we got Nick Fury a
true.
lot, but we never had Phil. I miss Phil.
Did they even know he was alive? Like they never referenced.
oh,
him.
that's true.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
he's
you never
supposed
know.
to be. No, he's supposed in their world. He's dead because they do the Tahiti.
Yeah, the Tahiti
thing
project
where
on-
they
But he ended up on the news a couple of times. Like there were video cameras of him doing stuff that occurred in like when Patriot was the head of Shield. They ended up on the news together. So I thought that was going to be the introduction to bringing Phil back into the main cinematic universe. But yeah, as far as they're
We'll go back
but
to
Sif knows he's alive.
go back to Winter Soldier, or no, not Winter.
Who completely
Ultron,
disappears.
when the Hellcats come back, and Nick Fury he references and says, "I have a friend in high places," or somebody kept this on. So I always thought that was the reference to Coulson and Agents of Shield there.
Well, actually, that's not true. You know what? There is a scene in before or after Age of Ultron. No, before Age of Ultron. It's Shield that lets Maria Hill know that that Loki's scepter is in what's the name of that country?
Sokovia.
So Maria Hill knows that Coulson is alive. Maria Hill is still working with Tony and everybody. I can't believe nobody ever mentioned. Maria doesn't mention to anybody that Coulson is still alive.
I think they're trying to keep it. I don't think it's supposed to be like known.
Maybe
I think that's one of those things where it's because
Well, Coulson also motivated them too.
that is true.
yeah.
So,
So
maybe because of that they can because then they would know Nick would lie to them repeatedly. So the big battle scene. So now all the other heroes are coming forward. This is the first time Thanos looks particularly scared. Scarlet Witch gets a hold of him. I don't know if it was first, but she eventually gets a hold of him, and she comes the closest to destroying him right away, and he realizes it, which is why he then calls on the Rain of Fire. He basically has the Sanctuary to bombard everything on the battlefield. Miraculously, none of our heroes die in that either.
Well, the sorcerer starts.
Oh, that's right. The sorcerers start blocking.
Yeah, they had
That's right. But at this point, around this point, is when we get our first view of A-Force, which in the Marvel comic book universe.
Yeah, but you're no.
No.
But before that happens, where he's just raining down from the ship. The ship's just shooting the guns, and then all of a sudden
Captain
they just
Marvel.
stop and they just start shooting. Like I thought.
Right, you're
My
right.
initial thought was I thought there was somewhere like I thought they were just like shooting New York or like
Well, you know what? I
Manhattan or
forgot
whatever,
two
like just
things.
killing survivors.
So but before we even get to that, I glossed over the introduction of Pepper Potts in the rescue uniform, or the rescue, not costume, but gear. When she comes out in the blue gear and is fighting back to back with Tony when things come in. So then we get the Captain Marvel shows up as the glowing presence when the guns start firing in the other direction.
Yeah, he's like, what are they shooting at? They're like, oh no, something just entered the
Yeah.
atmosphere. It's just she's just like, bam.
And then she does like what she did in Captain Marvel and takes out Sanctuary 2, Thanos' ship. And then after that, we get the battle still going on, and then we get the first scene of A-Force when all of the female Marvel Cinematic Universe characters come together, which was the next time I teared up. I don't know why, but I had an emotional reaction to that. And maybe it was fan service. Maybe I'm just very happy that all the female characters are together. But when they all teamed up to help Captain Marvel get through the gauntlet of Thanos' army.
Yeah.
However, unsuccessfully, though. Not because Captain Marvel did anything wrong, but Thanos figured out where she was going and took out the second time machine. which brought us back to so then we get the fight scene between Thanos and Captain Marvel, which was another one of my favorite ones, mostly because Thanos goes to headbutt Captain Marvel.
She just eats it,
and she just doesn't even flinch. And he looks at her like, "Oh crap!"
He's like, "Oh man, I didn't think this person existed."
Yeah. So he's got at this
Which
point.
is weird because you would think that she was in space that whole time. He would have heard about her.
Yeah.
Which again goes
That's a
back
good
to my
point.
question about like where is she? What is she doing?
Well,
like, why is she?
She says that in the very beginning where she's like, Rhodey says to her, she's like, he's like, "Where have you been?" You know what I mean? You come back here talking all this stuff, and she's like, "Well, not every planet has you guys."
Yeah.
So there's a lot of planets that still need saving, but that's one of those things where it's like, you would think that Thanos would know of Captain Marvel, if not know her, or heard of her in some way, shape, or form.
So right, I agree with you, and I think we'll find out more about that as we get to Captain Marvel 2 down the road in the Phase 4. So anyway, it ends up he's got the gauntlet on. She's fighting with him. It's not necessarily going well because he pulls out the Power Stone and punches her and knocks her away. Tony looks over at Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange raises the one finger. And it's at that moment that Tony realizes that the reason why he was kept alive is he is the only one who can get the stones back. So he launches himself at Thanos. They squirrel for a while. Thanos very easily knocks him away, goes to do the snapping, says, "What is this?" Because he says, "What's his
Inevitable.
I am inevitable." Yeah. And he snaps his fingers.
That's what he says, too, when they go to the garden.
Right.
He says that to them.
So he snaps his fingers, and nothing happens. And he turns the glove over and realizes that there's no stones in it. And he looks over to Tony, and you see the stones going into Tony's now nano glove. And Tony has that moment. You wonder what Tony's about to say. I was not expecting him to say,
I am Iron
Man, but I was thrilled when he said it. And then he does the snap.
I can't remember what I thought he was going to say in that very moment. I can't remember exactly.
I thought it was going to be.
Also, we glanced over this too. It was amazing to hear Captain America finally go "Avengers Assemble."
Yes,
as well.
Yeah, that's
when
right.
everyone just because at that point.
But you know what my problem with that? My problem with that was they were already assembled. It was he needed to say it before that happened, not while they had actually stopped marching. They were all there, and then he yells out, like there was no assembling.
Yeah,
that was the only thing that.
But I mean,
I was still happy he said
to
it,
assemble as a team. I mean, but that whole God.
I was waiting.
I might go watch it. After this is over, I seriously might go to the movie theater.
I'm telling you, Phil, I'm having the exact same thought right now.
Honestly, just talking about because just thinking about it, like. I'm sitting here. I'm like getting the chills, like I just thinking about the fight scene.
Yeah,
because that's the thing too. Is like it's hard to remember exactly what happens because there's so much going on, and you're like, oh, like your eyes are like so wide open. It's hard to focus on one thing because of everything that's going on. You're super stoked because this is actually happening. You can't believe it's happening. So you're not like you're trying to focus as best you can, but you can't. So like you can't really. It's like one of those things. Like you said, you're gonna have to watch it like 4 or 5 times to pick out every little thing in that fight scene.
400.
I'm saying in the first day at least.
Oh yeah, exactly right. So he snaps his fingers, and Thanos' army and himself gets dusted. And but then we see the next time that I start to get choked up is we now see Tony is mortally wounded at this point. He slinks down. He's ashen. Half his body is burned at this point, and. We all know it's time, and
it finally puts justice to the fact that I'm only in this for me.
What Cap says.
Well, that's what Cap says. Yeah, you're not the guy that makes a sacrifice play,
right? And he ultimately makes the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah,
for the universe.
But you kind of see both their characters switch because Tony makes the sacrifice, but then Steve does the selfish thing,
lives his life at the very end. Yeah.
Well, I think at that point I think he realizes that they don't really need him anymore. We'll get to that though.
Yeah. Well,
we're almost there, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
I think Steve deserves that. I think after all of that, the guy needs an ending. The guy needs. I mean,
I was thrilled with it. I mean, there are a few more things to get to, but yeah. So the snap happens. Spider-Man's the first person to comes over and he says, and we did it. And then Rhodey comes over, and Rhodey has a moment with him, and then Pepper comes over and has.
I can't think about it.
And then Pepper's goodbye was so powerful. Like she lets him know it's okay to die now. You've done what you've done.
You don't have to fight to stay alive anymore. It's like you did everything.
Yeah, and she's super strong. And then as soon as the eyes close and the lights go out, the light of his chest goes out, that's when she cries. And granted, that whole scene was like, oh god. Even the second time, by the way, I teared up or got chills or whatever happened to me both times I saw the movie at the exact, like I knew it was coming and I still got choked up.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
it's the same thing. Like with the Battle of Winterfell. I don't know why I sounded like that. But the Battle of Winterfell that just happened the third episode of this season. Like I watched it the second time I watched it, I was still like I knew it was happening, but my heart was still pumping.
That's
so,
when
like it's one of those things where it's like it's something that's impacted. Like it's one of those things that it impacts your life so much, and you're so embedded in it. No matter how many. Like I remember when I first started watching Infinity War again when I got it on digital release, I was still getting like sitting in my bed like, yeah, man, this is awesome.
No, and that, so he dies, and then we go right to the funeral. Right, the next scene is the funeral.
No,
was there
I think there's something in between. It's nothing.
I don't think so. Well, I mean, we have everything dusting. We have him dying. I don't think that anything happened. I think we. Go
it kind of fades
funerals.
out. I think it fades right into the funeral because the end scene is the old Cap.
Right.
So
we go into the funeral, and I thought that was a good. When in the funeral scene, did anybody realize who the young boy who was standing by himself was?
Is that Iron Man 3?
I figured it out right away. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, my friend
was the
me,
kid.
like, who was that?
It caught me off guard.
Yeah,
because like they're panning through, and then like, wait, who's the random kid?
Yeah.
And then I think I asked you, and I think you were the one that told me, Mike, that it was the kid from Iron Man 3. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because I'm like, are they trying to hint something here? Like, is this supposed to be some random character? Is this an Easter egg here?
The other beloved character from the Iron Man movie. I thought that was a nice inclusion. Who knows?
Absolutely.
And I don't think he got dusted either because he was an older kid.
Yes.
So he must have been alive. But I thought, seeing all the family members together and the Guardians were there and Captain Marvel by herself and then seeing Maria Hill and then Fury walks over. I thought that was all great.
Who's Maria Hill?
Maria Hill was by herself. She was standing by herself.
I could have sworn she was with somebody.
She was right after the kid.
She was right after the kid.
Yeah,
I think
I
then they go
thought she
up
was with
and
somebody else.
It's
I don't think so.
Samuel L. Jackson and Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
I could have sworn that there was somebody next to her.
And then
Unless in my brain I implanted Phil Coulson next to her. Just
maybe that's who we wanted to be there. So that scene happens, and then the scene after that is when Cap goes to return all the stones. There's a small scene with Happy and Morgan there as well, but
the hamburgers.
Yeah, the hamburger scene, which is a throwback to Iron Man.
Oh God,
1.
yeah,
that was nice.
And supposedly somebody added up all the Marvel movies, and they equal 3,000 hours.
Do they really?
Supposedly.
That would
I don't know. I don't trust
the
internet.
whole.
I don't trust internet math.
No, I don't either. So, but I wouldn't be surprised. But it doesn't sound right.
I mean, yeah,
there's a deeper meaning to I Love You
3,000,
which we glossed over earlier too.
Yeah, we did do that. Hey man, it's a lot. Hey, listen, that was a 3-hour movie, and we've been talking about this movie for 2 hours and 5 minutes.
So what you're saying is we got to at least match 3. No.
So then the final scene is the returning of the stones, which Cap volunteers for. And once again, he picks up Mjolnir without any problems. And he gets funneled up. But before he leaves, and this scene is also which was important because I think a lot of people were going to ask this question. This is where the Hulk says to Cap and everybody whoever's around that he really tried to bring Natasha back when he had the gauntlet on, but he just couldn't. It just wouldn't happen. But he tried to bring her back, and so we know that the Infinity Gauntlet will not bring back somebody who was killed as part of the to get the Soul Stone, which answers a lot of questions related to that. But then Cap leaves, gives a big hug to. I remember thinking when he gave the hug to Bucky, I remember thinking that was an unusual hug for somebody who was going to be back once he did his job. But then when we see that he doesn't come back, and Bucky kind of knows, and then Falcon, when Bucky makes note of the older guy standing over there. and Falcon goes over. Now, here's the question I have, though. So it's now Old Man Cap.
Can I bring something
what's
real
up?
quick first? Because I meant to bring it up earlier when we were talking about the big battle scene. Like how I said I wasn't the biggest fan of how the Hulk was played out. I would have absolutely loved if during that battle scene something happened, and because a lot of people were talking about World Breaker Hulk showing up in this movie, and I mean, which I think at that point that would be a little excessive because nothing can beat World Breaker Hulk. But I wanted Hulk to completely take over in that fight and just start wrecking shop.
Yeah.
I would have loved it if they actually did that, but I mean, did he actually do anything during the actual battle?
Yeah, he had a couple of fights, but he had to get rescued. If going back to that, he ended up having to be rescued by Ant-Man. So Ant-Man turns into Giant Man, pulls out Hulk, Rhodey, and Rocket. Then Rocket just shooting people with a gun. War Machine's doing his War Machine thing. Hulk's throwing people around, and Ant-Man's doing his Ant-Man thing. But anyway, so the final real main scene is then sort of Cap's goodbye. Oh, no, actually, I take it back. Before we get to... I knew there was a scene in between the two. There was when Thor...
as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Thor turns to Valkyrie, and he goes back to New Asgard, turns the reins over to Valkyrie, saying, "You're a natural leader." This is sort of his moment to say, "Okay, I'm off to do other things. King life is not for me. I have to go find myself."
I don't even think it's I think finding himself is one of the reasons, and I think another thing too is he's just I need a break from this. I'm just he's everything I've been through, I've been doing this for so long, and I'm you know what? Everything was so mentally draining on me. I just need some time away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
He's now going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, we
3,
assume, but as Guardians of the Galaxy.
He makes sense that, I think
he's a natural fit for that. If that
Absolutely.
ends up being...
Especially with the new way they do him with the comedic overtones they do for it.
And the fact that they lost Gamora, I'm assuming it'll be... I could see Guardians 3 being the search for Gamora. But having him in there to play that character, to be a part of that, I think that'll be a good fit for him. And
well, I wonder if that was all included in the original James Gunn Volume 3. I wonder if he knew that was the route they were going.
They said they were going to use his script. But
that's what I'm saying. So, how's that going to work out, though?
I thought he was back as director.
He is. He
is the director, but he writes it as well.
Yeah. So he ends up going off, and he's with the Asgardians in the Benatar. And so they end up flying off together. And it'll be interesting to see. We see the bristling between Quill and, well, not really, but just Quill bristling. Everybody else seems very happy about having Thor there.
Yeah, but then it's just, he's I'm the captain.
Yeah.
Oh, of course you are. Yeah.
Of course you are. Of course you're the captain.
Of course you
enjoy it. So then we finally get Cap's final scene where he says goodbye to Bucky, ends up coming back as an old man, has his moment with Falcon, gives the shield to Falcon, and which is right out of the comic books. Falcon picks up Captain America's shield. Though the question is, what shield is it? Since Captain America's shield was destroyed, and whose shield did Captain America give to Falcon? Now, some of the stuff I read said the phrasing, so Captain America, so Falcon picks up the shield and says it feels like somebody else's, and he goes, "Well, it's not. It's yours." So it was a new shield crate. I mean, Captain America would know about Wakanda. He could theoretically go over there and say, "Hey, I need a shield for a guy."
Could have seeked out Tony earlier.
Yeah.
Well, no, because he gets that one in the first. It might be his original one. Maybe. Here's another question. So, in some timeline, that means Cap's still on the ice.
No, because nothing was changed.
No, because if you went back to then,
right,
they don't find him until what, the 2000s, something like that?
Right.
See, I think
so.
2011?
2011. Well, when was the first Avengers?
I think it was 2011.
2000. Yeah. So in 2011,
that was 12.
He goes back to what is that, 1970?
What?
Ish, when he goes back in time.
Oh, he goes back. I think it was 1945. Oh, wait, the second time?
With Peggy.
Well, he ends up with Peggy at the end.
Yeah, he would go back. Yeah, he would go back.
Oh, he went all the way back to 1945.
So he went back all the way back to 1945. Yeah. So still at that point, is there still a Cap in the ice though?
I think. Well, yeah, he'd go to a different reality.
So two Caps.
And I think it would be very weird for Peggy Carter to see her man get frozen in ice, and then all of a sudden,
well, here's
hey,
the thing.
I'm Cap from the future.
I think Peggy, being who Peggy is, which is knowledgeable and very advanced and seeing beyond things. I think if Cap came back and said, hey, and because I am positive of this, that Cap came back, explained the entire situation to Peggy, and let me just say that Peggy Carter is one of my favorite characters in the MCU. I've been thrilled that they've brought her back in some way all the time. And have referenced her in every single one of the Captain America movies in one way or another. So I thought it was perfect that the movie ends with those two dancing together and having a kiss.
I called that a while ago.
Yeah.
On Reddit, I posted something like, I was in somebody posted the scene. It's a scene where they're talking right before he crashes the plane into the ocean, and I said, I think, how awesome would it be if the last scene was him and Peggy's in the... Oh, I said it was going to be in the hall, though. So, you know how in his... when
his dream.
Scarlet... his dream, his vision, whatever you want to call it. And I said, how awesome would it be if she's just in that hall, just by herself, lonely, and he just comes out of nowhere. It's just he's like, how about that dance? And they start... And the last scene of the movie would be them dancing. It's a little different because it's in their living room, But here's the other thing, though, about the whole thing is, so was he always meant to go back in time? Because, I lost it.
That's okay. That's the beauty of it. We're only discussing what we saw in the movie. The stuff that's going to happen in the future, or the stuff we don't have answers to.
Yeah, because there's a one point, I think it's during it's Winter Soldier, when he's going through the museum, and because they have the Captain America thing, and she says oh yeah, he actually saved my husband when in World War II, or I don't remember exactly what she says, but there's is it a possibility that she's actually just covering up the fact that Captain America came back from the future and has actually been Cap the whole time? So
yeah, I don't know. I would
make
love to
Sharon
find out.
Carter than his
Nothing.
niece.
Yes. Yeah, but not blood. But Sharon
True.
Carter wouldn't be a
Right.
blood relative, so it wouldn't be that weird. This isn't Game of Thrones. It's not going to be that kind of weird connections. So that ends up being that there's the finality of the Endgame is it doesn't end with a stinger. It's one of the only movies that doesn't end with an end credit scene. All it ends with is the banging of the original bang. We believe to be the original banging of the Iron Man when he was building the Iron Man suit. Is basically the last sounds you hear as the movie fades out. I think they did a nice job with the end credits, giving the 6 main Avengers their own special end credit with signatures. Yeah. So I thought that was nice as well. But ultimately, as we saw, that it was a beautiful movie, almost flawless. I think whatever flaws you saw were going to be
very minimal.
Minor. Yeah,
it's all very minimal. It's basically
gives
in my opinion.
Gives a good. You get moments. I think it is the best of the MCU movies when you consider the totality of it. I'll always love the Guardians movies, and I'll always love Thor Ragnarok. I think those will be movies I'll rewatch all the time. But I think when you look back at this movie, it's going to be just a perfect movie. Everything you could have possibly asked for Thor to, or for,
not just that.
For Marvel to end those 3 phases.
The way that it all, you've been waiting so long for this culmination to take place, and it finally took place, and it did not disappoint.
No,
it didn't disappoint at all. It was a nice wrap-up ending to everybody's storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody
Infinity
got
saga,
but also good jumping off points for the Phase 3 or the Phase 4 universe that's going to come down the road. Which the last thing we'll talk about is the Spider-Man trailer that came out today. A couple of things that I mentioned that were brought up as little Easter eggs inside of that. They talk about Planet Hulk in the trailer.
I missed that.
Yeah, they do. Fury. When Spider-Man is asking Fury about, well, why don't you call the who's ever left, the Avengers?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, what about Hulk? He's like, what about Banner or something like that? He goes, Planet Hulk. So apparently, if what we mentioned earlier is that the snapping has ripped open the multiverse, and these other things are leaking.
Are we jumping into this now, or is there still other stuff we're talking about?
Well, I'm talking about it now.
That's what I'm saying. I wasn't sure if there was something else you wanted to go back to.
No, I think we finished Endgame. I just wanted to talk about the trailer.
Well, they actually bring up in the trailer for it that multiverses are already, culminating.
Well, we knew. We knew in Doctor Strange that multiverses exist.
Well, but Mysterio is from an alternate universe.
Now,
that's another thing too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. See, Mysterio is
they're leading you to
he's
think
a charlatan.
that he is, but
proving
well,
once again proving we can't trust anything we see in a Marvel trailer.
Trust issues,
No,
man.
they just better not mess up Mysterio. He's one of my favorite characters. I grew up reading Spider-Man. That character is just so cool. And I remember reading the original ones with Sam Raimi, that Bruce Campbell's character originally was going to be Mysterio, and I think the fourth one. But I don't know. I think there's definitely something afoot with him, with his he's playing tricks. I just don't want them to mess him up. I'm nervous.
Well,
I don't think they will. In Marvel, I trust.
Yeah.
They haven't let me down yet.
No, they haven't. Everything's not including Thor or Thor: The Dark World.
Whatever.
But
Mulligan.
otherwise, I've been very happy with it, and I thought this movie was great. I will watch it probably a third time in the theaters. I think I'd need to see it in IMAX, which I haven't seen it yet. Which I'm not a 3D guy and I'm not an IMAX guy, but I feel like this would be the movie to go see in an enhanced form. But that's it, guys. So we've been talking. You are now officially the longest podcast we've ever recorded at 2 hours and 18 minutes or so. So congratulations.
Nice.
And thank you all for coming to my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having
Are
me.
you ever coming back on the podcast? Sure, in 10 years when we have another one.
Well, we have another
After
culmination of 20-some years of
Exactly.
getting everything.
Hopefully, we'll be in 10 years. We'll be talking about the culmination of Secret Wars with Doctor Doom
that would be
being
neat.
involved.
I think
in
that's
the
actually-
world.
I think that's actually going to be
That's
the
the one.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think they're going to do Secret Wars for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I wanna see
yeah,
that on the
I would like to see it.
screen.
I wrote down earlier. I'm like, some questions is. So where do they go from here?
X-Men.
What do they do?
Oh,
How they bring them in? Which now I think they're going to do it with the I always thought it was going to be the way they're going to bring those characters in
The
with
X-Men
the
and stuff like that,
multiverse. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's the way they're going to do it
That'll
too.
Yeah,
Like-
I want to see the Fantastic Four. That's who
I wanted to see the
want.
Fantastic Four properly done.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to see Doom properly done.
Yeah. Or Galactus properly done.
Yeah, true. I want to see the Silver Surfer properly done.
Exactly. You have just so much that you can.
Yeah, that's just it. The
great.
Avengers, this Avengers universe is such a small part of the Marvel larger comic
Yeah.
universe.
Well,
There's so many places to go.
I
with
think
it.
Yeah.
the next thing is going to be more on a universal scale, where it's going to take a lot. Excuse me, a lot of it's going to take place in outer space.
Well, how much more can you blow up of Earth? I mean, they've destroyed New York how many times? They've destroyed...
Yeah,
But you know what it does do? It makes, because the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Marvel comic universe basically revolves around Earth as a central point. Whereas, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Earth was barely even known. But now that Earth was the center point of the salvation of the universe, I think that brings the Earth into a higher plane of knowledge. So that means it'll be more of a focal point from a universal standpoint, whereas up till now it's been where Peter Quill's from,
yeah. No, but I just think it's a lot of the big Avengers fights are going to take place in.
Yeah.
I mean, because realistically, outside of Doom, I haven't really heard anybody talk about how they want to do any other villains. Like everyone just, now that they know that they have the Fox properties, it's like Doom, give me Doom, give me.
Oh, I
Doom,
want to see Doom
but
too.
you can't bring them in right away. You have to wait and you have to do it properly. You can't force it.
And that's the thing MCU does. They take it. Marvel Studios is great for slow walk. Wait, I mean, think about it. Thanos was first brought up in 2012. 2012 was when the
After the
Avengers.
first
Yeah,
Avengers,
Avengers,
right?
First
The end
Avengers.
scene where he
So it
turns
took
his head.
6 years for their main villain to actually show up in full form,
Which
with
actually was nice. It was a great build up.
Yeah.
But the thing about it too is you can't do that in this one
No.
because you can't rinse and repeat. You got to come up with different ways to tell the story now because you got all these different characters that you have to get people to care about again.
Yeah.
It's like you've been dealing with those other characters for so long, so now you have to Captain Marvel. You're already you got Spider-Man, you got Doctor Strange, you got
Black
Ant-Man and
Panther,
Wasp,
yeah.
you got Black Panther. Well, now you're going to start bringing in more people as well. You just got X-Men, Fantastic Four at some point, and you got to get a way for people to invest in them as well. Mm-hmm. And I think the best way to do that is to get a big villain that actually spans across every movie. It's not just like, all right, Thanos is here for these, for Infinity War and for the two Avengers movies. he needs this, like the next villain has to become a much bigger role, and he has to play a bigger part in each movie.
So Marvel Studios, if you want Phil Huesser to work on your next 10 movies, please just contact Talking Catholic, and we will put you into contact with Phil Huesser.
I will gladly do that. I would.
All right. Well, Jay's got to go teach a class in the morning, and I got a kid and a wife that probably want to go to bed. So after 2 hours and 21 minutes, we're now going to.
So we got 40 minutes to kill until we get to the 3 hour mark. That's what we got to do.
I am kicking all your butts out of my house now. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank
Pete,
you for having me.
Yeah,
thanks, Mike.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is actually
great.
really good. It's like you can talk about this with your friends, but like to actually sit here and have a full blown conversation about it, though, it helps you get so much off your chest, and
it's cathartic.
It lets my inner nerd play.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, and to the two people who are still listening to this, thank you for listening.
Hopefully, I made it entertaining enough for you people.
I hope so.
Or we made it entertaining enough for you to keep listening.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you later.
Bye bye.